Superhero Stuff You Should Know is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Ben from Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and I have an important announcement for you guys. At the end of every single episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you might hear us shout out to our fans, one of whom is Matt Herring, who was one of the original Superhouse fans. He's always given us his support, and now it's time that we support him. We've just recently found out that Matt has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And as a cancer survivor myself, I know personally that there's a lot of emotional and financial strain that comes into that. His wife, Kelly, has set up a GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt. And hopefully you can help reduce the financial strain to that, as well as some of the emotional strain that comes with that. Again, that's gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt.
Matt Herring was the first, I guess you could say, true Superhouse fan. We were Superhouse at that time. You know, the first fan of this podcast and what we do here, and has always supported us, talked about us, and he's from a town close to where I'm from, and so we share that as well, and just a huge superhero fan, and, you know, nerd like the rest of us, and now he's going through that, and if you could donate just at least any amount of money to that link that Ben just said, that would be truly appreciated. Just hang in there, Matt. You'll beat this thing soon. All right, man. I'm here for the tryouts, man. I heard you were holding the Henchman Tryouts, and I am here to do whatever you want. What is it, big man?
Oh, well, this is going to be a lot of fun. Well, Harley stepped out, and Larry, Moe, and Kerr are no longer around, so I'm just going to do a few simple tests to see what you can do for me.
All right, I'm ready. Let's do it. I'm stretched, ready to go.
All right, now, we're going to pretend that old Pointy Ears and his little boyfriend are going to come in and try to break up our fun. So what's the first thing you're going to do when you see him smash through the plate glass window in the ceiling?
I'm going to throw this here fucking javelin right in the fucking chest.
Oh, javelin, huh? Can you think of anything a little more, you know, clown-themed or Joker-like? It's kind of my thing.
I got it. Oh, yeah, all right. I got this poison fertilizer right here. I can put it in one of those flower things you got. Flowers also grow on the farm, so very easy to do. Put it right in my breast.
Oh, well, I guess I could go along with the idea of him being Guano Man, but I'm just not sure that's quite what we're looking for.
I got this. All right, what about this? I got a hoe that I use to plow the back 40, and I could use that as a weapon of sorts. I heard they did that back in Okinawa Karate.
This is really not going how I expected it to go. You know, I do have one thing you could do to be a tiny, insignificant part of my grand design. What do you say?
Oh, man, whatever, dude. I'll put on the face paint, makeup, whatever you got, whatever the fuck it is, man, because I'm ready to make that.
This will be much simpler. You see that?
Oh, you know I like simple.
Oh, you poor, sweet, simple little fool. You see that big circle on the wall over there?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yes, the one with the big X on it.
Ooh.
Do you think you could
Is that what that is?
slide in front of that for me?
Oh, let me just hop over there. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop.
Oh, aren't you a little Georgia peach? Now, could you go a little to the left?
Oh, like over here?
There you go. A little bit more to the right.
Okay, yep.
Perfect. Now, I know riddles are usually Eddie's thing, but I've got one for you. Let's give it a go.
Oh, okay. I'm not so good at riddles, but all right, here we go.
All right. What do you and a piece of Swiss cheese have in common?
We both smell delicious.
No. You're both full of holes.
Welcome to Superhero Stuff You Should Know, a Superhouse podcast. I am once again the man who knows too much about Batman, in my Keaton shirt right now, and I am joined once again by my co-host.
It is I, Andrew, here once again to regale you all. No, that's Ben's job.
He's to help me regale you.
Help regale helper.
And we are joined once again by our previous guest who joined us on Batman Legacy, and he is back for today's story. And we have from Instagram, Zachary Brown art.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Now, for you guys who have been listening for a while, you might have heard some interesting character bumpers that have come up every now and then. Sometimes it's the Joker, sometimes it's Bane, sometimes, even last time, it was Norman Osborn. And this is, I guess, the time to reveal that that's actually been Zach sending those in. So, not only is he a talented artist, but he's also a very talented voice actor and impressionist, as you guys just heard in the Joker sketch in the beginning. So, thank you, Zach.
Yes, we got most of our bump. You have the record, but you beat Kooky Noms at this point. So, Kooky, you got to get on it.
She's like, challenge accepted. Let's see. But he is here to join us for today's story, which is the big one that I wanted to lead up to. We've talked about Contagion, we talked about Legacy, we talked about Cataclysm and Aftershock. That is all leading up to this big one, which is No Man's Land. And this is part one of No Man's Land because it was such a long story. I could not fit it all into one episode out of good conscience. It might even be three-parter because I still have like 50 issues more to review by the time, but we'll see what happens on that. But anyway, I wanted to first start off by asking the familiarity that people might have in terms of No Man's Land. So we'll start with Andrew.
Absolutely none. Well,
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen the cover in Barnes & Noble in '99, and that's it.
Got it. Okay.
I'm sorry, man. I haven't read
This is
that one
perfect.
too.
This is perfect. You'll give us
get
fresh reacts.
The fresh reacts from yours truly.
Exactly. So, in contrast to that, Zach, what is your familiarity with No Man's Land?
Oh, it's definitely one of my favorite Batman storylines. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's just the fact that you get to see how so many different characters deal with this natural disaster situation. Mm-hmm. They're thrown into a totally different environment than we're used to seeing them. So, yeah, I've been well aware of the story for a long time.
Awesome.
You got it when it came out in like 98. When it come out? 97, 98?
99.
99.
Hmm?
You got it at that point?
Yeah, just like I was telling Ben earlier, I accidentally bought Volume 4 first, so I kind of jumped into the middle of the story and then realized that, and then I went back and got the other volumes so I could get the story caught up in my head, but I was very, very into it.
Yeah.
Does it say part 3 of 4 anywhere or whatever on the book? Because I feel like that's a problem sometimes with comics.
Yeah, it does. I got my
Okay.
Volume 1 copy here, so it does say
yeah, there you go. Okay.
But, I was younger, so I just wanted to see the pictures. I wasn't a good reader. But yeah, I just picked it up mainly because the cover stood out to me, and I was like, oh, I got to get that. So I had just started to get into comics at the time. I was more into the cartoon and the movies, and I remember getting like the Batman visual dictionary and being
I had that too,
so shocked at I think that's when I first learned about the Joker being the Red Hood. There was like the whole page about him, and I was like, who is this Red Hood guy? Because my only experience was like Jack Nicholson and Mark Hamill's Joker, and that part was omitted from their origin. So that's when I really started to get more into comics, was after I got that visual dictionary, and I wanted to find out more about those stories that the elements of the dictionary had come from.
Nice.
Those are great. Those are fantastic. For me, I'm similar to Zach in that I was at a young age when I was also introduced to the storyline. I knew of it, and the first time that I was exposed to it was actually in the kids novelization by Alan Grant, which I have here. And that was my first exposure to it, and I read it, and I was like, it's all right. It's okay.
You didn't love it at the beginning. Because it wasn't the full thing.
Well, it was a very truncated version of it, sanitized for kids. So that was part of it. But the other part of it was that I just, as a kid, similar to Zach, like you're so used to the movies and the cartoons that you want to just see more of Batman kicking ass.
Does this book have a soundtrack?
Yeah. So then later on,
I have a friend that told me he cannot even read comics really because he needs he needs movement, he needs the music. Like he loves superhero movies, but he needs it to be a movie or a show. He can't, this is what's happening to people worldwide. Like people are losing their imaginations, I guess.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that might be one upside to this whole quarantine situation. People are kind of forced to find entertainment elsewhere because eventually you run out of stuff to watch on streaming. But yeah, I did ask for, okay, what other versions of the story are out there, and it turns out that that was not the only novelization. There was a Greg Rucka novelization, so I actually read that next before I read the original comic. And then it wasn't really until I found out that Gotham was adapting No Man's Land that I was like, all right, let me just buy the entire storyline from Cataclysm, Aftershock through No Man's Land, which is like, it got reprinted into about, I want to say 7 volumes total. We're looking about like 2,000 pages of comics here. I read through it all, and I was like, okay, there's no way Gotham's going to be able to adapt all this, but my God. People keep citing when they ask you the common top Batman stories. People usually list, Dark Knight Returns, Year One, The Long Halloween, Hush, all those, and those are the ones that are the popular choices, and I like those too. But to me, my favorite and the most epic, the most character-driven, that displays all of Gotham City, not just Batman or Joker or any of those, but to the one that displays the entire city as a character, is No Man's Land. And that is why I wanted to lead up to this one, because I didn't appreciate it enough as a kid, but now I see it as just, it's a masterwork in comic book storytelling that I don't think is ever going to be matched in Batman comics. Better
than fucking Brightest Day by Jeff Johns, bro?
I didn't even read that. I mean, if I were to adapt this Batman story properly, because they tried to shoehorn this into they tried to shoehorn this into The Dark Knight Rises, and I was like, you can't do the story in a movie. Like, if they want to do this HBO Max show that's rumored with Ben Affleck, I'm like, do No Man's Land. Put him in there. Put J.K. Simmons as Gordon in that.
That's be so
fantastic cool. There. Let's jump right into how did this come about. So we talked a little bit last time about Cataclysm, but Zach, are you familiar?
Real quick, who's the writer? Who's the writer again?
Oh, there's a bunch of them. I'm going to go over who they are.
I got you. Okay.
There's a bunch of them. But Zach, are you familiar a little bit with how No Man's Land came about as a storyline?
No, not at all.
Well, there we go. So we're going to jump a little bit into it. So No Man's Land was the brainchild of a DC editor named Jordan Gorfinkel, who outlined the story as like a 10-page proposal, sent it out as an email, then went on vacation, and when he came back from vacation, they told him, your proposal? Yeah, that's going to be the whole next year of Batman stories. So it was considered to be the most ambitious crossover in Batman history, because it wasn't just... They had done crossovers before with like Nightfall and the ones that we covered before with Contagion and Legacy, but this one covered Batman, Detective Comics, Shadow of the Bat, Legends of the Dark Knight, Robin, Nightwing, Catwoman, and Azrael, Agents of the Bat, not including occasional tie-in comics with the Justice League and Young Justice.
Did it say where he went on vacation?
It did not. But it was before he went on vacation, not while he was at vacation, so it's not like that would be the inspiration to it. But Denny O'Neil himself, the late Denny O'Neil, said that, quote-unquote, it is in a lot of ways the most ambitious thing we've ever undertaken, and it's a story we've never told before. It's an absolutely glorious opportunity for us to fall on our faces. So... but me
to insert a lot of peace symbols and all kinds of hippie paraphernalia because I am Denny O'Neil.
We're about like 20 years after all that, so
he hung on to it though, man. Look at his picture taken in like 2010 or some shit. He's wearing a hippie, what do you call it, the peace symbol thing?
Yeah,
all that shit.
One of the big inspirations for this was the TV show Babylon 5. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Oh shit, I've heard it's really good.
I've heard it too. I haven't seen it. Zach, have you seen Babylon 5?
I haven't seen it. I've just heard about it.
Yeah. Same here. But basically, that was a show that felt like, I guess it was like Star Trek, but where like more people died. Like this is like pre-Game of Thrones, pre-Walking Dead era, where just main characters dying or getting killed off a lot was just not a thing at all. So Gorfinkel said that he was captivated by the idea of adding more stakes to the story. Like, what if we injected more where the heroes and the villains, it's not just like, oh, rinse and repeat, back to Arkham for you type of thing. Like, there were actual consequences that would last forever sort of thing. So that was what
and video games this is called permadeath.
Yes. So there were some permadeaths.
Character stays dead. Yeah.
According to our friend of the podcast, Andrew Farago, who wrote the Batman, The Complete History. Hold on a second. Here it is. I'm showing it to the camera. The big compendium.
He's holding
here.
up an actual humongous tome of bat knowledge.
Here we go.
For the audio-only listeners.
DC felt this story would resonate at the time because we're just about 1999, so we're 1 year away from hitting the year 2000, and that's when they had the Y2K bug paranoia, if you guys remember this.
Yes.
So this whole idea of, like, no technology, everything's back to ground zero was like they knew that would resonate with readers. Plus, they had already set that up with the whole Cataclysm and Aftershock type of story. So that was...
So Cataclysm and Aftershock are already a thing, and then he has No Man's Land idea just kind of separate from that.
I think it is. They had it going, and he had an idea of how
just expanding.
Yeah.
A lot.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I got
at least that's the impression that I got from my research. But he decided to put an all-star lineup of writers, some who had previously written on Batman titles like Devin K. Grayson, and some who hadn't written Batman comics before, or specifically Batman comics. So one of those was Greg Rucka. Before he wrote the novelization, he got into this through No Man's Land. Another was G.I. Joe and Wolverine writer Larry Hama, and nice. Of course Paul Dini, who had only been writing for the animated series at this point, but this was his first foray writing into comics that weren't tied into the animated series or the animated continuity at all. But I think his biggest get, Gorfinkel's biggest get, and the man who starts the whole arc in writing it was he went to Hollywood and he got screenwriter Bob Gale, who's the co-creator and the writer of the Back to the Future trilogy.
Oh, shit. And
Bob Gale is the one who first wrote, I think, the first 3 or 4 issues of this whole storyline and brought it all together. And totally, he's like, I'm a comic book guy myself. Again, at the time, like, it's not like Gale had a lot of opportunity to really write a lot of comic book movies because it was around, the era of the 80s and 90s where there was like one comic book movie every 3 or 4 years.
There was a separation too entirely. Kevin Smith talks about this on a lot of his podcasts where he says Kevin Smith's one of the first like actual crossover comic book director types. Mm-hmm. And he said that like whenever he was giving a pass at a Superman script, Kevin Smith said to one of the producers, "Why don't you have one of these comic book writers write the actual movie script?" And then the producer's like, those comic book guys, I don't really know what they're doing. It was just a different world. It was a different world at that time.
But yeah, so they did the reverse here, it sounds like, where they're just like, well, screenwriters know what they're doing, so let's bring them on to the comic books.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Gale was not one of those just like, I don't write for comics, I write adult movies, like Back to the Future. No, he was like, no, for real, I love Batman.
I make real pictures.
So they actually brought the ball together to New York in what they called the Bat Summit. And they're like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. And Bob Gale was the one who said, hey, as screenwriters, the problem with comics is that it never really ends. So you kind of already know that Joker's going to get out of Arkham later, or Two-Face is going to get out of Arkham, or Ra's al Ghul's not really dead. He's going to get out of Lazarus Pit. Why don't we figure out what our ending is and what those consequences will be first and how to lead up to that and what our arcs are and all those things. So he proposed that, and they all sort of came together to figure out one master document, one master outline of what the entire storyline would be across all those titles before they wrote a single word of a script on this comic. So
that's cool. So they had a third act in mind. Is this considered an Elseworld story, or was this
no? This is main. This is absolutely main canon. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to now break down No Man's Land in a similar way that I've done with Contagion, Legacy, and Cataclysm. However, since it's the most popular storyline, I realize that there's a lot of people who've already read this comic. You just haven't heard a recap like this one because I'm not only recapping the comic, I'm also incorporating what was added in the novelization of the junior one and the adult one. So, to get the full
knowledge
story, yes. So, just a quick recap then of Cataclysm. If you guys haven't checked that out, please stop this episode and listen to the Cataclysm recap where we went over the entire storyline there. But it pretty much ended, spoiler alert for a storyline from 1998, it pretty much ended where a 7.6 earthquake had leveled Gotham. Bruce Wayne had attempted to ask the government to intervene. They said no, partially thanks to the influence of the supervillain Nicholas Scratch, who wants Gotham to basically be a no man's land, essentially. And after failing to do that, Bruce Wayne disappears, and Arkham Asylum inmates end up being released by Jeremiah Arkham to go back to Gotham and take it over, and that's how everything ended in Cataclysm. So we pick up in No Man's Land 3 months after that. So a lot of shit's happened. And Bruce Wayne and Batman have still not been seen in Gotham during those 3 months. Bob Gale wrote the first issue, as I said. The first 4 issue story are called No Law and a New Order. And he said, quote, "This was truly the Dark Knight, the darkest night possible. We were starting off a major year-long Batman arc, and Batman isn't even in the first issue."
Oh, shit. Okay.
Now, Zach, when you were reading this, did you notice sort of Batman's absence in the beginning? Well, I know you kind of read it out of order. But once you got like the full story, where you're just like, oh, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I definitely did. Back at the beginning of the quarantine, I went back and started to reread it from volume 1, and it definitely was interesting. But I kind of liked being able to see those different character moments with those characters that don't always get a spotlight on them. So I liked it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. All right, so the first issue starts, and we just see the state of affairs at Gotham. You've got the army guarding the area where the bridges have been blown up, where nobody gets in, nobody gets out, sort of thing. There's a minister who wants to come in with like food supplies. They don't even let him in. There's a guy who hires a helicopter. There's like $5 helicopter tours for Gotham. See the ruins. And this guy pays the $5, and he says, "Hey, I'll give you $200 if you let me drop off food." And you think, okay, cool. He's a humanitarian. He's like, "No, I want the pictures of people killing themselves in order to get that food." So, yeah.
So it's a very bleak outlook.
Yeah. As I said, this is Gotham at its lowest point.
The worst
that Cataclysm brought this up.
Gotham's already like pretty shitty to begin with, generally, huh?
Yeah, so now it's even worse. People on the streets do take the food. They don't kill themselves over it, thankfully, but one of them finds an apple, and we sort of follow the journey of this apple, and he goes to trade it in for stuff, and this is where we see the state of the world, where he tries to offer it to the guy, and the guy offers back stuff to trade, and he's like, "Here's a cell phone." And he's like, "Well, who am I going to call?" And he's like, "All right, here's a Walkman." Remember, this is 1999. So this is a Walkman.
Here's the height of technology.
The guy's like, "What am I going to listen to?" And then he offers a watch, an expensive Rolex watch. And he's like, "Why do I care what time it is?" And then he gives him a flashlight with batteries. And he's like, "Deal." So this is the survivalist tone of the story, where things that used to be valuable aren't anymore. And all the things that are valuable are things that we all take for granted on here. This is also a world where, and this helps with the crime stuff, but guns are dwindling. Well, guns aren't necessarily dwindling. People have them. They're just not able to necessarily use them because there's an ammo shortage. Because, again, nothing comes in, nothing goes out. People are now using bows and arrows instead, or making them. People are burning books to keep warm. But
God damn, man.
You thought Gotham was bad just on a regular comic. It's even worse in here. There's a great moment where one guy tries to mug another guy, and the other guy doesn't flinch. And he's like, "Give me all your batteries." And the guy's like, "If you had a bullet, it's worth a lot more than these batteries. So go ahead. You're not going to shoot me. You don't have anything." And he walks away. So I'm like, that is so good, though. But this is Bob Gale, screenwriter extraordinaire, everybody, bringing his flavor to Gotham in a way that you wouldn't expect from the guy who wrote something like Back to the Future, which is a lot more light. And
are there Back to the Future Easter eggs, like a DeLorean drawn in the background somewhere?
No, Bob Gale went full bleak survivalist Gotham. You can't even. I didn't even realize it was him, honestly, until I was rereading. I was rereading the names. I was like, really? And then I realized it was the same guy. I thought maybe it was like someone else with a similar name. No, it's actually him. So the apple finds its way to the Iceberg Lounge, where the Penguin is auctioning it off to people, and he ends up auctioning it off for like a diamond. And people are just like, well, what do you want with a diamond in no man's land? But they say the Penguin actually is the one who has the pipeline to the outside. He can get you stuff. And that's why everyone comes to him. And he's kind of the smuggler type and information broker with these connections. And Bob Gale thought it was important to establish Penguin as somebody who wasn't the Burgess Meredith, like, thief anymore. He said, quote, the Penguin was a master of corruption, someone who had studied history and fallen empires and knew how to work all of this to his advantage. So he really made him a major player here. And before he gives it to the guy with the diamond, he takes a bite out of the apple, saying the Penguin always gets his piece. And if that sounds familiar, it's because Anne Hathaway did a similar thing as Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises when she saves that kid and takes a bite of the apple before giving it to him.
So direct lift.
Yeah, direct lift right there. But
Yeah.
yeah, just give you a full survey area of Gotham. So Penguin has his area. Two-Face has taken down the downtown courthouse. Killer Croc is like a nomad, just wandering around places. Black Mask and
I still want Michael Rooker to be Killer Croc so bad. I want Rooker Croc so bad, man. By the way, total tangent there, but we've talked about this before.
He's
Ben and
savant,
I.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like imagine him in the makeup with that accent, and I
can see it.
He's from South Gotham, man. He's just got that kind of like something kind of brutal about Rooker, you know?
Yeah.
It's some intensity, some primal intensity.
Just put some makeup on his Merle Dixon. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you got an interesting Killer Croc. I want to see Killer Croc that's more than just a monster. You know?
Yeah.
Like they didn't I liked what he looked like in Suicide Squad, but they didn't really do much with his character.
He's a cool villain for sure.
In let's see, Black Mask and the False Face Society are in the Fashion District. This is also the time where Black Mask got the Skull Mask, because beforehand he didn't have that. But the famous Skull Mask that he has, that comes from No Man's Land.
Oh well, shit.
Also
Ewan
important to
McGregor's
note,
got to thank his lucky stars.
Speaking of which, Birds of Prey was shot in downtown Los Angeles, close to the LA Fashion District. So it's kind of funny that Black Mask in the comics in '99, 10 years beforehand. Wait. 20 years beforehand. What am I talking about?
20, man, 20.
I'm old.
I think the 2000s are the lost decade, bro. 2000, 2010. What happened during that time? I have no idea.
Yeah, we just grew up and graduated. I did.
Zach, name a good album from 2000 to 2010. Any genre.
Oh. The Killers.
Okay, well there you go.
Town.
You got one. All right,
That's a good one.
it's the one.
Let's see. Ventriloquist and Scarface have Newtown. Poison Ivy has taken over Robinson Park, which is basically the Gotham Central Park. Makes sense because she wants to be around the vegetation. And Joker is known to be out there, but he hasn't been doing anything.
Mysterious.
Probably
that would make me uneasy.
Batman
Like
hasn't
him
been
being
seen
not
in 3
around?
months. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it makes sense. So that's why Mr. J has not been seen for a while. So the whole reason why, so it's like Gorfinkel said, this was like a fiefdom. This is basically like Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones, where there's each section of Gotham belongs to a certain supervillain.
You're really selling this, man. I'm gonna have to just do my homework this time for the next episode. I'm gonna come back with the knowledge on the next one. God damn it! Now I have to do it. Now that I said it.
Yeah.
All right.
Gorfinkel says, quote, each story takes place in a different section of Gotham that's like a little fiefdom, and he was inspired by the game Risk in order to do this, according to, again, our friend Andrew Farago on there. But again, Batman has been gone for 3 months, and the main defender of Gotham so far is Oracle, which is interesting because this is a very low-tech world. She can't hack anything. So instead, she's trying to trade information old-school way. She's trading for food supplies. She's getting homeless people to give her information, and also she pretends that, hey, like, I have the antidote. The army put poison in the food supplies. I got the antidote, so come in, I'll give you the antidote and you give me the information. Turns out what she's just giving them is MSG, and there is no actual poison, but it's just a tactic to get people to work for you. Yeah.
So
it's a different type of poison. It's a slower.
A certain percentage of people are getting dizzy then. That's it.
Yes.
And hot
Oracle just
flashes.
That's the only line that Oracle will cross here. But yeah.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, she's the main like vigilante type who's defending stuff. But the GCPD is still around. There's just maybe like 20 cops right now. They call themselves the Blue Boys because now there's different gangs, and now they have to operate almost like a street gang in order to uphold order.
Are they somewhat right wing?
You're about to find out.
Because there's a right wing group called the what do they call the Patriot Boys or something like that.
The Proud Boys.
Proud Boys. That's it. Yes, the Proud Boys. Yeah.
I can see the connections there, but you'll see. But they don't have any jails to put anybody into. So at one point, like Bullock helps stop this crime, and he tells the criminals, "Take off all your clothes and give them to the people who you tried to strike." That's their punishment for that. They have to run around naked now in no man's land and give the clothes to the people that they just victimized. So I thought that was a very clever idea on Gale's part.
That's cool.
As well. But yeah, it's barely holding together. Harvey Bullock is around, and he's lost a ton of weight, so he's not that fat anymore because there's not a lot of food. They're like eating out of cans. At one point, he gets like shot, but like it doesn't even pass through him because his coat is so big; it just passes through the coat. So that was a really nice detail. But at
that's
one point,
another voice that when I read it, it's the BTAS voice.
Robert Costanzo, yeah.
It's just so iconic to me.
It's I was amazed that they brought him back for Arkham Origins for just that little bit.
Oh, own the role, dude. So
Yeah,
good. There's nobody else until he dies.
Pretty much.
Sorry.
So there's a part where this cop he finds and kind of makes this makeshift bat signal. He's like, "Look, I can shine it and everything." And Gordon goes up to it, and he immediately destroys it. It's kind of like at the end of Dark Knight, and he says, "We don't need this because he's not coming." So
Gordon just gives up.
Gordon,
it's 3 months though, yeah.
Gordon hates Batman because Batman has abandoned Gotham in his mind. So this is the first real major change outside of just survivalist shit and all the supervillains have taken over. Gordon hates Batman now.
It's taken 3 months for me to create anti-earthquake boots in the Batcave.
It's a little late, Master Bruce. I believe the earthquake was many months ago.
It's never gonna happen again.
So Gordon tells it's basically down to him, his wife Sarah Essen. For those who remember Year One, he had an affair with a cop named Sarah Essen there. He ended up marrying her many years later, and she's helping him run the Blue Boys right now, along with Harvey Bullock, Renee Montoya, and a bunch of other characters I'll talk about later. But he tells her, quote, "He always took the easy way out. Being a vigilante was always easier than being a cop." So he has a lot of resentment towards Batman in this, but because of the fact that they are in this lawless world, they realize they have to play things by the street gang rules. So they know that there's this territory that's owned by two rival gangs, and they decide to start tagging the walls on the alternate territories so that they can start going after each other on that. And one of the characters who's a big supporter of this is a SWAT team leader named Pettit, who almost wants Gordon to be even more ruthless. There's like a dynamic that sort of foreshadows the whole, if you guys remember the early days of The Walking Dead where it was Rick and Shane and stuff. So Gordon is kind of Rick, where he's like, I want to stand by my moral values, and Pettit is more like Shane in terms of just like, it's a different world, man. We got to survive. We got to kill to survive type of thing. So Pettit ends up adding a little bit more by killing a whole bunch of the gang members in order to save Gordon, so that he starts a gang war, so they start killing each other. And Gordon is kind of wondering if he's doing the right thing. And he tells Sarah that he's sort of become, he says, quote, "I wonder how he became that way in terms of Batman." It's like maybe he had everything taken away from him too. Maybe he had to become who he became. So in a way, he hates Batman, but he's sort of understanding Batman at the same time. Again, Batman has still not shown up in the story yet. He's only mentioned by name on these things, but we already see the fleshed out versions of the characters. In the meantime, Penguin is throwing people into the river, throwing people off the broken bridges into the river because he wants to test if there's landmines in the river, because the government put them in there to prevent people from trying to swim in. So they grab this bearded homeless man to throw in there, but that homeless man starts fighting back naturally, and as they grab him, they pull his beard off, and it turns out to be fake, and it's Alfred. and they realize they're in trouble when a shadow of a bat starts coming after them, and Batman returns, and he fights off the gang and takes them out. By the way, no real explanation in how he comes back to Gotham. Just saying, just putting that out there.
Oh, really?
So Nolan.
What about the 3-month break then? Like, what? There's no explanation for
There
that?
there is explanation. I'll go into that, but there's no actual
Okay.
explanation of how he got into Gotham. So funny enough, I know we
He
talked a lot
definitely
about
wasn't
that Dark
in
Knight Rises.
Gotham before.
He wasn't in Gotham before.
He wasn't already in there,
And he wasn't in some prison across from the world either, thanks to Bane. So, but I'll go into it a little bit later. It's not revealed right now, but he goes in and he takes.
So
off,
the
takes out
problem
the gang.
that Dark Knight Rises has is actually a comic book accurate problem.
Yes, but I'll go into a
Still
little
a
later.
problem, but comic book accurate.
I'll go in.
Zach is shaking his head, dude. He doesn't.
I mean,
so much
Zach,
easier to accept than a comic book. You know, in a movie, it's like glaring it in your face. But in a comic, it's like, I guess he got there.
I get it. I just find it pretty funny. At least there's precedent, okay?
Yes.
There's precedent.
There is, however, that doesn't mean that there's no explanation for other characters who get into no man's land in that story. So, I'll get into it later when we get there, but it is... Batman comes in, he takes them out, and what's interesting is that in the comic, and I don't know if this is because Gail's a big comic book fan, so I would think he would know this. At one point, one of the Penguin's guys goes off the bridge and sets off one of the mines, and it explodes, which implies that Batman just killed this dude. But it's never really addressed ever again.
Okay.
And I was like, wait a minute. And funny enough, I think that when they wrote the novelizations, they wrote ways around it. So in the kids' novelization, a piece of debris from the bridge falls and causes the mine to explode down below. But all the thugs are still up at the bridge and still alive. And then the Greg Rucka
So he saves his ass
novelization,
there.
yeah, like the Greg Rucka novelization doesn't even feature the mine going off at all, which is kind of a Chekhov's gun situation. Like, if you're going to say there's a mine, you might as well have an explosion later on. But whatever the case is,
Right, exactly.
it's interesting that there's 3 different takes in terms of what happens there. I personally prefer the kids' novelization version on that, partially out of affection because that's how I first learned the story, but also because that's the one that I think makes the most sense in here. But Alfred has been on the streets of Gotham the entire time since Black Monday, which is the day where everybody had to get out of the city, or else there was going to be they were going to blow up the bridges. And he's been scouting out Gotham on the streets for Bruce this entire time, using his medic training to help people along the way. So this is like guerrilla warfare Alfred sort of thing. It's really cool. It's detailed a lot in Legends of the Dark Knight number 118.
It's always like, is it MI6 Alfred or is it not MI6?
It is,
it's
yeah.
always the question.
He's occasionally fighting criminals there too. Like, remember in Cataclysm, there was that issue where they tried to storm Wayne Manor, and he ended up taking them all out without Batman even knowing that it happened. So
yeah, that's right.
It's
that's
great.
Right.
But Batman is hard on himself because he realized when he swooped in that the thugs aren't scared of him anymore. And the novelization has Alfred point out that there are things now that scare them more than Batman. Because look at the state of Gotham.
I think the BTAS, the Batman animated series, had something a little before this. This is probably something that's in Bat mythos throughout the years, but there was an episode where he doesn't wear the suit anymore, or the bat suit, and he goes out just wearing like a black a regular
Phantasm.
Is that Mask of the Phantasm?
That's
Yeah, he's
Mask of
like,
the Phantasm,
they're not afraid of me or something.
But that's because he hasn't come up with being Batman yet in the movie.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm getting this all confused in my memory for some reason.
But this is where he actually already is Batman, has been Batman for a good 10 years or so, and now the entire city's changed, so like the way people react to him is completely different.
But
Gotham
it's just
is
always
now completely
interesting
different.
for whenever he loses his fear element. That helps him in a fight, generally speaking, right?
Right, yeah.
So especially with Henchmen, I'm assuming the way they write it. So
Right.
Whenever he loses that element in a story, I always find that interesting. He loses an edge a little bit.
Yeah, and so a lot of this is how he's going to get that edge back, not just mentally, but also in the eyes of the criminals of Gotham.
Right.
Batman, in terms of where he was at, issue number 0 actually explains that Bruce was sort of demoralized by the failure to convince Congress and rebuild Gotham. So it was kind of a Dark Knight Rises-esque issue where he actually is at his lowest point and he almost doesn't want to go back to Gotham in a bit because he feels like he failed. Like, keep in mind, like, he had gone through the Contagion story, the Legacy story. Bane was threatening to blow people up with a nuke in that other story. Then the earthquake hit, and now he's failed to, have the U.S. government help out his city. So for a while, he's trying to party with these rich influencers to try to get the U.S. government to help Gotham again, but none of them really want to help out. And at one point, he walks around and gets his ass beaten by muggers.
Batman does?
Yes, and this is explained when he crawls back to his hotel room and finds that, of all people, Talia al Ghul is waiting for him. Because she tracked him down there because she, I guess, wanted to check in on him because she just heard about Gotham. And
she's not trying to bang or what?
No, she's not. She... This is not the Marion Cotillard version.
She's waiting for him at a hotel room. It's just, she sets
figures
itself
out...
up a certain way.
This is pre-Damian. Well, technically post-Damian because it was after the some of the Demon story.
You got to get Damian somehow.
That was done in the 80s. It was done beforehand. But anyway, she realizes that he deliberately got himself hurt. He wanted to feel pain. He wanted to, quote-unquote, feel punished for failing Gotham. So that's why he didn't fight back with the muggers. Because he
emo
could've,
bat move.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's in Robert Pattinson... Full emo Robert Pattinson with black eyeshadow.
I like that though. I don't like that.
I do. I do like that though too. I'm not dissing it. I'm just saying that's the mood.
In Batman Returns, there's one shot where Keaton has it under his cowl. You can totally see it. Cut to Pfeiffer, then cut back to him. It's not on his face under the cowl, so he can rip it off. Right?
Yes.
That's like that's oh my god.
Did you notice that too as a kid, Zach?
Yeah, I definitely did. I don't know. I guess I just accepted it as it was. I'm sure that it's only a matter of time before whatever comes after Blu-ray, like Crystal 4-Ray, and they'll probably go in and digitally add in eye makeup.
Yeah.
Like just before he rips it off, and then it'll be normal.
I want them to do that as well as digitally remove the purple splotch that's on Nicholson's neck when he says I'm Joker.
Historical.
Oh, I'm not sure.
The shoe polish.
Yeah. That was, that was shoe polish. That was on there. I forgot how that came about. But
I've watched that special feature like a million times, and the makeup artist said that they had already done a take, and some of the white makeup from his neck had got onto his purple jacket, but instead of taking alcohol and cleaning it off, they did like a purple boot polish on his jacket, but then whenever he had it against his neck and he turned, it left that mark on his neck. And I was like,
why would you do that?
They shouldn't have done that. They were probably like, no one's ever going to notice this.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. So Talia slaps Bruce to basically get back into action and tells him that you're a disgrace and you dishonor yourself and your cause and your city for not doing anything. Sort of thing. So weirdly enough, Talia al Ghul literally slaps Bruce Wayne into action here, and she offers as an alternative to take him away. But Bruce brings up that there's someone else, or someplace else, and she needs him more. And of course, that's Gotham. And so Talia says, "Okay, she understands, but don't expect her to wait around for him, because obviously she won't. And then she'll be back and be crazy with Damian in the Batman and Son storyline of Grant Morrison many years later." But yeah, that's how Bruce gets motivated. And so, as I said, there's not actually an explanation of how he shows up in No Man's Land, because the next time we see him in issue 0, he's in the beanie and the green jacket from year 1, the outfit that he wore when he was on the streets and he met Selina Kyle. He's in that already, and he's already in Gotham. However, I will say that unlike Bane, there is nobody actively threatening people trying to get inside. There's just a border of the U.S. Army who's just there to make sure nobody gets in or out. But if you can go around them, they're not really going to do anything. So that is my argument in terms of like, yeah, technically it's the same thing as The Dark Knight Rises, but it's a little less like stake heavy in terms of like make sure nobody gets in and things like that. They have other explanations in terms of how people get in or sneak into Gotham in the storyline. But I just want to point out there, do you agree or disagree about this choice to have Bruce kind of almost lose hope during this time, post-Contagion, post-Contagion, Legacy, Cataclysm, and Aftershock? So what do you think, Andrew?
Oh, Have Batman lose hope?
Like, does it make sense to you, or do you feel like, he would push through that shit?
That's a good question. You know, I wouldn't want it to happen in every single Batman story, obviously.
Yeah.
It is annoying in Dark Knight Rises for some reason that he's got given up for, what, how many, 5 years or something?
8 years.
8 years.
It's ridiculous.
But, yeah, it's a little too much, I guess. But for 3 months, maybe it doesn't. I don't hate it yet, I guess. I just want to learn more. I need to learn more first, I guess, to see where this is going.
That's all that's explored. That's all that's explored of that 3 month period, though. So.
I don't have any knee-jerk reaction against it right now, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So,
how about you, Zach?
I like it. It makes him seem more human, and it kind of sets the stakes for this particular storyline, making it seem like this is a really, really, really big deal, compared to Contagion and stuff, where, something equally bad did happen, but he was kind of just like Batman and pushed through it and everything. So it does make this particular situation seem a little bit more special.
I don't like how he's like, I wanted to feel pain. Like, I don't like that. I do have a knee-jerk reaction against that. But other than that, I don't mind, him being human and sort of losing hope every now and again, because to the reader, somebody that's trying to be inspired by comics, I guess, and storytelling in general, is somebody that overcomes despair, I guess, is a good storyline. So,
Exactly.
That's what I think.
To me, I find it a lot more palatable than The Dark Knight Rises, because Dark Knight Rises is 8 years, and this is like just 3 months, and also a period of time where it's just like one thing after another, after another, after another, especially with just how harrowing Cataclysm and Aftershock were, in terms of just hammering at Bruce's soul. That it's just like, I agree with Zach, like, it's realistic that he's going to have a loss of faith. It's interesting that they chose Talia to be the one to sort of get him out of that, but it is, as you said, like, it is more realistic and makes him more human in a way, for him to realize, hey, like, this could be it. This could be, I could just be a failure through all this. I think we all go through some form of that, even as somebody as strong as Bruce Wayne. So when he goes back into the city, it looks like he's established a whole bunch of mini bat caves throughout the city. And the reason why is that he actually established these back when Dick Grayson was Batman during the Prodigal storyline. That's after Nightfall and everything. And so during the time that he needed Dick Grayson to take over, he came up with this idea of putting Batcaves throughout the city, which kind of gets carried over, because as you saw in the Arkham Asylum video game, he's got a Batcave on that island. So it's kind of carried over into stuff today. So Batman has returned in this case. So to represent Batman, I've got my post-apocalyptic nightmare Affleck Batman to join us here for his scenes. But anyway,
I've been staring at that little Cillian Murphy Scarecrow you've got on the table behind you too this whole time.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Did Nightmare Batman Batfleck, he does have the cape under the trench coat, right? In the movie?
So
it's not on the toy though.
Okay, all right. I just always thought it was just like, that's just like,
it's a trench coat instead of the cape, I think.
Too much Snyder. Too much for that, Snyder. Too much. I'm not sure if I agree with that artistic choice.
It's really hot in here. I'm sweating.
I'm undercover, see?
I don't know how the black eye makeup isn't running down my face.
It's hot as hell fighting these fucking parademons.
And then what's interesting is the first issue of the story, just to go back a little bit, reveals somebody takes some spray paint and paints a bat insignia on the wall. A gloved hand starts tagging the bat symbol on everything. And later on in another issue, a group of kids are being menaced by a gang, only for a bat-like figure to swoop down, revealing a Batgirl. Not the original Batgirl, obviously, because Oracle was in a wheelchair, but a Batgirl with a mask that completely covers her face with a mouth sewn over. Is
this the debut of that one?
This is a debut of I guess
what was
this
her
is
name
the first
again?
Batgirl post. Well, they leave it a mystery, so
okay.
I will let you I will guide you towards the answer to that. But she talks to the kids, and she claims that she is Batman. And they're like, well, you're a woman, no offense. And she's like, if you were a big tough guy and you got beat up by a girl, would you admit it? Or would you say it was a huge, giant, 7-foot-tall guy with fangs and claws? And they're like, good point. So this new Batgirl is the one who's been tagging the walls, and Batman confronts her. And she's basically like, look, Gotham needed a bat. You weren't around. So I'm going to do this whether you like it or not. Batman realizes he's probably going to have to find some way to work with this person. So he's like, don't disgrace the symbol. And then he leaves. But he sort of has this tenuous partnership with this new Batgirl who's been going around town. But the first person he goes up against is Scarface, actually, is the ventriloquist. And ventriloquist has taken over this one area where people kind of have the Stockholm syndrome. They all kind of worship him because he looks out for them. He protects them. He provides them food and everything. His main rule is that nobody says the B word, which is Batman. Because if you say Batman, that means he's real. So he almost doesn't want anybody to say it because that means that Batman will come back. So that's the main main thing that he's banned on there. Batman can't really get much information from Oracle on the ventriloquist here because it's a low-tech world. So Scarface doesn't have any computers to hack. So I thought that was a cool thing. But the ventriloquist's main role in the city is he controls the ammo. He controls all the bullets. Even his men only get one bullet each, so that they don't use them against him, of course. So again, more of that survivalist flavor that I love to the story. And then when Batman first investigates, he gets caught and shot at. And even the innocents he's trying to protect are afraid of him. So he realizes this bat suit that he's wearing is probably not going to cut it in terms of trying to infiltrate Ventriloquist's gang. So he goes undercover. Not quite as much as Malone. He's got the similar look as like the Year One-esque disguise that he had. But he goes in because he sees the Batman costume as a liability and sort of infiltrates Scarface's gang. Now, this is interesting because this was actually supposed to happen in the final season of Gotham. I don't know if you guys had heard about this, but season 5 of Gotham, the final season, was supposed to be a full-out season until they got only a 10-episode order. They then got extended to 12, but they had to shortchange a lot of their original ideas. One of them was that John Stevens says, quote, as he infiltrates one villain sector after another. He says that young Bruce, the David Mazouz Bruce Wayne, would adopt different identities, at one point even take over leadership of a gang, almost like the way Batman did with the Sons of Batman in The Dark Knight Returns. And he would be doing that during season 5, which is their adaptation of No Man's Land, of the story. So it's interesting that they had this in mind. And it was likely from this issue, because they also had, again, another friend of the podcast, Andrew Sellin, end up becoming the ventriloquist on that show. But the disguised Bruce claims to Scarface...
SuperHousePodcast.
I love how he said...
You know what's good for you.
Did you watch... I forgot. Did you watch Gotham, Zach? Because I know you've done the Jeremiah Valeska Joker.
I think I only made it like midway through season 4. Mm-hmm. It is kind of... I mean, it was already like jumping the shark from... but I remember being super into it and into like this kind of idea that it was going to be Gotham Central, or I like seeing these characters before they were the bad guys. Like I kind of lost interest whenever people were becoming fully fledged villains. Like the Mr. Freeze one was in like 1 or 2 episodes, and I was like, well, it would be kind of cool to see like Victor Freeze as a character for a longer period of time.
Yeah, so. And his love story with Nora, and them develop that. Instead, he's just like, all right, it's Heart of Ice. Boom, the end.
Yeah, I liked the overall arcing stuff. It just, whenever they try to do what, I guess it would be like the Villain of the Week episodes, that was kind of bizarre. I mean, I don't know. So I got through about season 4 where I was
like
really...
like a one-shot episode? Like, doesn't have to do anything to do with the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think they were doing that just to be like, hey, remember it's a Batman show. Here's Batman villains. So just kind of strange.
We're going off on that tangent right now, but I watched like the first like 4 or 5 episodes back like when it came out, and it just felt like they didn't know what tone they wanted. Like it felt like what's the guy playing main guy again?
Gordon?
Fucking Gordon? Yeah.
Ben McKenzie?
Yeah, that guy, Mackenzie. He's like playing it straight, like kind of dark. He could damn near be in a fucking Nolan movie. But then cut to Jada Pinkett Smith, right?
Yeah.
She thinks she's in Batman 66, And it's just like
Birthday kid.
yeah, it was just like driving me crazy. Like the villains are in another show and the heroes are in a different show. That's what it felt like to me. It was driving me nuts.
It was very much the Batman Forever-esque idea of just like, let's keep all the serious stuff for the heroes and then over the top stuff for the villains, which
I guess
still worked, you know.
Schumacher was better at it. I don't know. That show didn't work. Yeah. Kevin Smith also said, like, I have a podcast called Fat Man on Batman. It was called that at that time, and he was like, he couldn't watch the show, man. They couldn't do it. I didn't feel.
I remember being really into the Penguin at the beginning.
Yeah,
and
Penguin was cool. Yeah, he was cool.
That was my favorite part, his little arc. But I don't know. The minute that they showed like Poison Ivy as a little girl, but it was Ivy Pepper, and it was all this like weird stuff to change for no reason, and she's been recast like three times. Yeah. It just
I didn't know that
stuff like was really strange. I just wish, I guess, it had been a little bit more based in reality to begin with. Like it seemed like it was going to be. So
yeah,
it was hit and miss.
Well, we'll go over their adaptation of the No Man's Land story, but back to this one. Bruce Wayne, while disguised, he claims to Scarface that he has a whole box of ammo that he's willing to trade in order for protection. So obviously that's a trap for him to lure Scarface in to become Batman. And when Alfred brings up, like, well, this is a big endeavor, Master Bruce. Like, are you sure you don't want to call in Master Tim and Master Dick? Because Dick Grayson went back to Bloodhaven, and Batman ordered Tim Drake to move out of the city with his dad. And Batman says no, because he feels like it's his duty to save the city. It was his failure to, that No Man's Land happened in the first place. So it's on him for this to happen, which sets up this big arc for Bruce Wayne himself throughout the story. But he feels like he is the only one who can be trusted to bring Gotham back. So he sets this trap for Ventriloquist. Ventriloquist brings everybody over to it, and the box of ammo actually has a magnesium flare in it. So it blinds everybody, and Batman comes in, and he grabs the Ventriloquist, and he's like, say my name. And Scarface says, Gatman, and Batman takes Scarface, and he shoves him away. And he grabs the Ventriloquist, and then he's like, no, say it correctly. And Arnold screams Batman, and it's one of the greatest moments in this, because of the fact that, like, it's him taking back the city. It's him taking back his fear factor here. And then
he reclaims it.
Yes, because remember, Ventriloquist is like, don't say Batman, and Batman's just forcing him to say his name, because he's like, I'm back, and I'm real, and you're going down. So the next panel should be very familiar to people who are on the internet with memes, but it's Batman in the middle of a street with a bullhorn saying that Scarface is finished. Now, this became a meme because somebody changed the dialogue to say, has anyone seen the Joker? And put the caption, world's greatest detective, on the bottom. Just to make fun of the fact that Batman has a bullhorn. But in the actual context of the story, he's telling everybody in the city, like, you're free now. Scarface is finished. You guys are, everybody's, this is now my territory and everything. And Ventriloquist Ben aren't having it. And so they all try to take shots at Batman. And this is broad daylight. Batman's just standing out in the street in broad daylight. And they shoot him. And he goes down. And then he gets back up. And then they shoot him, and he goes down. And he basically pulls a Michael Keaton, like, several times. Because he knows that he's got the armor, and he needs people to see the myth again. He needs people to see the legend once more. And he also bargained that Arnold Wesker didn't give people armor-piercing rounds. So he's just like, it was kind of a gamble, but it worked. So after he frees
I always miss my jaws, Will, which is extremely fortunate for me.
After he frees them, he finds that things aren't quite what he thought they would be, because he thought that they would be like, thank you, but instead they're just like, all right, what do we need to give you? Like, what do we need to trade in for you to protect us? Sort of thing. Like, Ventriloquist wasn't oppressing us, he was our boss, and we need another boss. And Batman realizes that this is the desperate and the destitute, and they can't take care of themselves. So he goes back to Ventriloquist Met, and he's like, well, I'm not giving this back to Ventriloquist, but I want you guys to run everything exactly the way that we were before, but with no guns. And so he actually gives back that territory to Ventriloquist's gang, but it's under his territory, and he's basically like, if you screw this up, I'm coming back for all of you. But he kind of has to be forced to work with criminals here in order for him to take back the city. And that is his first step towards taking back Gotham. And I think it's time for a break. So when we get back from the break...
Good timing.
Yes, when we get back from the break, we will cover how successful or not so successful he will be in trying to reclaim everything else. See you soon.
Sounds great, sonny boy.
Robin, it appears that my parallel parking isn't quite up to snuff. Let me repark the car.
Who gives a fuck? I just want to get straight to busting some heads. I don't care about that whole steward of the law bullshit.
Robin, those are 2 instances of profanity. Alfred told you to talk better than that.
Fuck shit. I don't give a damn. Let's get straight to killing.
So that is about 8 instances in the swear jar, young man.
I'll just use some of the Wayne Foundation money. Come on, I can't wait. We gotta talk to that bastard at the top of the roof anyway before we get to the real good stuff.
I think you've been listening to too much of that rock and roll lately, Robin.
I just love the heck out of that death metal stuff. And mumble rap.
Mumble rap?
Oh, you don't know because you're on Facebook like an old man. But yeah, mumble rap's totally awesome. Come on, let's get this Gordon crap out of the way.
Hold on, I'm almost done parking, Robin.
So boring. We're gonna get spotted.
It's important that we obey the parking signs.
But we're the Batmobile, don't you get it? We can do what we want. We're above the law.
We are stewards of the law, Robin. I thought you of all people would know we are to set the example to the rest of Gotham.
I just want to get on my bow staff and just straight up leg sweep all those motherfuckers.
Damien, if I hear more language out of you, you will be grounded.
What?
That's right. I'm being very serious.
He is serious. So, finally you parked that thing right. Let's get up there.
All right.
Alright, I'm gonna just go ahead of you, okay? I can't wait to get up there.
I should have used a condom with Talia.
All right, everybody, if you like that little preview to the sketch right there, we have that plus news, plus we're bringing back some opinion pieces and review type stuff and all kinds of stuff in our $5 tier on Patreon. So just go to patreon.com/superherostuffpod, and if you become part of the $5 tier, you can see these new bonus episodes. Basically, consider it Superhouse DLC.
Ouh là là, vous écoutez des trucs des super-héros que vous devriez savoir.
Oh man, I love that Clayface and Harley Quinn, dude. I'm going to sing at your
Actor?
wedding. I am an actor.
So, Mr. Timothy Button.
Timothy Button.
And welcome back. So, where we left off, Batman has taken back the territory from Ventriloquist, and he's got, one down, several dozen more to go for the rest of the city. So,
If you're catching the video, by the way, the reason
Yeah.
we have such a sheen on our faces is because what is it, over 100 in LA right now, and we have to turn off the goddamn
I think
AC.
111.
We suffer for our art, everybody. I just can't let that go unnoticed.
Meanwhile, Zach's in his basement being like, I'm good.
Is that in North Carolina? Are you in like the nice mountainy area of North Carolina where it's not hot at all, really?
No, it gets hot here. We're like closer to the South Carolina border.
Okay.
We're about like 2 hours away from Boone, so I'm very close to Charlotte.
Okay.
Got it.
Not Asheville, where those
Asheville's
hippies are
about
at?
3 hours.
3 hours? Okay.
Yeah,
Is it still
Yeah.
Southern hippie town over there?
absolutely.
Oh, nice. Okay. Continue, Ben. I'm sorry.
All right. Let's see. I
Ben's
thought
like,
we
are you fucking serious right now?
Talking about
sweating it
Batman.
over here. I'm like, the quicker we wrap this up, the more I
I
can
want to
turn on
talk
the
about
AC.
Asheville.
I thought we might as well go into what's going on with the rest of Batman's allies during this time. As I said, Tim Drake has been asked to move out the city with his dad, and so Jack Drake takes his son over to Keystone City, where it is the hometown of the Flash, though not the Grant Gustin, Barry Allen Flash, but of the Wally West Flash who had taken over at this point. Crisis on Infinite Earths had killed off that Barry Allen Flash at that time, and Wally West had fully taken over in the suit. But anyway, he and Wally West end up teaming up against not only Captain Boomerang, but also the Riddler.
Boomerang.
The Riddler, as you guys might have remembered, when he got broken out of Arkham Asylum, he was the only one to decide not to go to Gotham. because, as I suspected, the No Man's Land writers did not want to deal with any riddles. So they're just had him go to a different city
Fuck
instead.
that guy.
So the Riddler is sending out a lot of. He's not sending just one riddle. He's sending out multiple riddles because he's up against the Flash. So he knows that he has to send multiple in order to keep the guy preoccupied. If it's just one, the Flash can just solve it like that. But of course, Wally is no Bruce Wayne or Tim Drake, so he needs Tim's help in order to do that. So that's a fun little tangent storyline there. And then Tim, though, feels a little bummed out about the fact that he's been kicked out of Gotham by Batman. But Superboy, the Connor Kent Superboy, and the Bart Allen speedster Impulse decide that they're going to go in anyway and piss off Batman and end up fighting in Robinson Park. But anyways, the Young Justice comic has all these guys working with Lagoon Boy to stop the group Cobra from attacking the No Man's Land Gotham. So there's all these different
I need you to explain Lagoon Boy real quick to me.
He's basically the creature of the Black Lagoon as a kid.
Are you serious? I don't know
Yes.
this guy. Okay. All right.
He's just swimming in Gotham, the Gotham Bay and stuff, and almost gets hit by the Cobra guys who are trying to use torpedoes to take out. They want to basically lay siege to Gotham because a lot of supervillains, a lot of Justice League and Teen Titan, Young Justice supervillains see this as the opportunity for them to take over Gotham and
Do Killer
first
Croc
Gotham,
and
then the
Lagoon Boy
world.
go on adventures together?
That would have made more sense, honestly.
Michael Rooker Killer Croc is like, that's my boy.
Lagoon Boy. But yeah, they all get warmed. They all get caught by Batman. Superboy, Impulse, Lagoon Boy, and of course Robin get caught by Batman, and Batman's like, stay away. So that's the end of that storyline. Stephanie Brown, the spoiler, is not available because, and I didn't realize this during Cataclysm or Aftershock because this might have happened in between, but Stephanie Brown is pregnant and gives birth during this time. So she's kind of out of commission and not available to help out.
Who'd she get pregnant with? Who got her
Her
pregnant?
ex-boyfriend.
Who's not like a superhero type?
No, just a random ex-boyfriend character from before she met Tim Drake. So, interesting. She was a
okay.
major player in the Robin comics of the 90s for Tim Drake before eventually she got spotlighted as her own, as Batgirl years later in the more purple, this is not the proper costume, but the more of the purple-esque Batgirl suit that Barbara would later wear in the New 52 reboot over here. But
Oh, yeah. I like that suit. That was
spoilers, yeah. Spoilers out of commission. Robin's been kicked out. Nightwing is back in Bloodhaven going up against, I believe, Blockbuster at the time, which brings us to Azrael. If you guys remember, Azrael was going up against Nicholas Scratch and trying to figure out what was going on with that dude and what might be behind him. Nicholas Scratch had framed him for the death of a senator during the Cataclysm and Aftershock storyline, and because of that association with the old suit, Batman gave him a new one. For whatever reason, John Paul Valley still thought it was a good idea to try to investigate things in his old suit, and ended up getting caught. And in the ensuing fight, there was a fire, and he had to leave the old suit behind. So the old Azrael suit is now destroyed in the building, and he has to switch suits to the one that Batman gave him, so that he can track down Nicholas Scratch, who is going into Gotham. But when Scratch disappears, Batman decides to use Azrael to find somebody else, and he assigns him after our good friend, Mr. J. So he asked him to go find the Joker for him. And
Batman assigns Azrael to go after the Joker.
Yes, and there's a very specific reason behind this, which is very amusing
Okay.
later on. But in the beginning of that story, we meet Joker for the first time in No Man's Land, and he has a little bit of a monologue, we could say, of going into how he feels about the whole No Man's Land situation.
Let's see. I can poison the water supply. The water supply is already putrid. I can very well foul up the air. The air is already soot soup. And I can terrorize Gotham citizens. The Yutzes are already scared out of their gourds. Oh, I'm plenty frustrated, I'll tell you that.
Bravo.
Fiddlesticks!
So, Joker's bored. Batman hasn't been seen in months. So, what he does around the city is he starts feeding jelly beans to Gothamites. And you think throughout the whole thing, oh shit, they're poisoned. Turns out they're real. He's just giving them real jelly beans because he wants them.
It's the only way I can ensue chaos in the courthouse Gotham.
So that they can tell Batman that where he is and that he's kidnapped a hostage. So Azrael's going around, and this one Gothamite's like, "Hey, are you Batman?" And Azrael's like, "Well, I was, but anyway, what's up?" And they tell him like, "Hey, this guy gave me jelly beans to tell you that he's got a hostage." So Azrael shows up, and Joker is pissed, and this is why Batman sent Azrael instead. Joker only really wants to deal with Batman, so when Azrael shows up, Joker can't believe that Batman sent a second stringer, quote unquote.
To fuck with his ego. Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
So Joker tries to kill him. Azrael escapes from the death trap, and Joker
I already have enough hair products, John Paul Valley.
So Joker flees, and John Paul decides, instead of going after Joker, to free the hostage, which is another good step for him character-wise, because he did not choose to do stuff like that when he was the Azbat during the Nightfall Night Quest storyline. So that's good for him. But basically, he ends up meeting Oracle in person for the first time, and she encourages him to help out Leslie Tompkins in saving lives in the MASH sector, because that's Leslie Tompkins stayed behind during the entire Black Monday thing in order to help repair people. So Leslie Tompkins becomes the go-to doctor during this time. And we'll go back to her and Azrael when we get to part 2 of this, but that's kind of where we'll leave them off. And then lastly, we go into the final Gotham Guardian, who we haven't accounted for, outside of the ones I've mentioned, which is Andrew's favorite bird of prey, the Huntress.
Oh, yeah.
So where is Helena Bertinelli during all this? She is checking in on this church where a priest is housing people, and Gordon is frustrated because the same priest apparently refuses to accept police protection.
I need a description. Is it a 90s un-PC costume we're talking about here?
It's the regular Huntress costume. This is not like the bare midriff one that Jim Lee gave her during Hush. Like, that is... that was ridiculous.
That's the one I had in mind. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's move forward. I'm sorry.
So there's this priest character, and Gordon's frustrated with him because he refuses to accept police protection. He doesn't, he doesn't want to be controlled by the government or the police state, as well as the fact that
is he a Proud Boy?
The main thing is that he doesn't want to belong to a certain territory or a certain gang in Gotham. He just wants to help bring people in. And so when Huntress goes in to check on him, he finds out that he has laid shelter for everybody, including the Scarecrow. This goes into a very interesting Scarecrow storyline, because this is the Scarecrow without his fear gas. And you see just how much chaos he can actually cause.
Without it, he can.
Yeah, without it. Yeah.
All right.
Which is cool.
I've actually never seen that. He's always
right?
so dependent upon that there gas.
Yes. So, Scarecrow here, he is the master manipulator in this because he wants to do this whole experiment in terms of people's fear and what it can make people do. So he actually starts playing everybody against each other. He destroys the food in the priest's church, and then he manipulates the priest to be like, "Oh, that's a shame. The rats all got to it." Of course, he put the rats in there. It's a shame all the rats got into it. But you need to find a way to protect your people, right? So maybe go to the one man who can feed people, which is the Penguin. And so the priest desperately asks the Penguin for help, and the Penguin agrees on the condition that he houses all the ammunition and arsenal in his church. So the priest is gradually trying to make a lot of moral compromises in order for him to protect his people.
Is Superman in the church also having a moral quandary out of nowhere? Looking into a stained glass thing out of just no reason at all?
There's no alien invasion happening for him to do such a thing, so...
Oh, okay.
Maybe I should talk to some random priest in order to decide what to do.
Yeah. That's, yeah, all right. Good to know.
Yes. We still support release the Snyder Cut. Anyway.
I do.
Yes, we still want to see it. But anyways, Scarecrow plays everybody against each other, and it pretty much leads up to this large gang war where the police find out that there's ammunition in the church, so they go after it. Penguin finds out that his arsenal might be in danger because the police are going after it, along with Black Mask's gang. So his people go after it. So you got two gangs: the police and the church, which is full of guns, and Scarecrow encouraging the churchgoers, "Hey, get your guns to defend yourselves."
So a church full of guns. That's actually not too much changed from how it is already.
Exactly.
That part checks out entirely.
Yes, exactly. Batman goes in to try to threaten Penguin to figure out where did the guns all go, and Penguin refuses to tell him. So Batman puts a device in saying, like, this is an EMP. It'll destroy all your electricity unless you tell me where it is. And so Penguin tells him what it is, and Batman goes off, and Penguin freaks out because the EMP is about to go off. And then the EMP goes off, and he grabs it, and he realizes it's a kitchen timer. It's not a real EMP. So, yeah, that was a great moment where Batman's just using anything that he's got in order to use intimidation tactics. But Batman ends up stopping this entire gang war thing over at the church, and Gordon shows up, and he sees Batman for the very first time. And he's like, stop right there. And then Batman, once again, they must have watched a lot of Michael Keaton, because Batman's reaction to Gordon telling him to stop is once again to disappear. Just like in Axis Chemicals in the 89 movie. So, they're not ready for a reconciliation just yet, and Batman, I guess, does not think that he needs to talk to Gordon in order to take back the city. So during this time, after the conflict is over, Scarecrow tries to continue to make people go up against him, and the churchgoers try to go violent and attack Scarecrow, but it's actually the Huntress, one of the most violent Gotham vigilantes, who decides to go against her usual nature and tell them, no, you're just going to give him what he wants. So she persuades him.
Forgive my lack of knowledge, but I am learning with the audience, I feel like.
Yes.
Huntress is generally written as super violent, more violent than the others.
Oh, yes. Yes, just like in the Birds of Prey movie. She's, that's Batman's main problem with her, is that she is willing to kill. That's why she carries around the crossbow, because she's not using that shit just to, shoot you in the shoulder or anything. So,
I got you.
She's usually the one who is willing to make those compromises, but here she decides that that's what's going to make Scarecrow win. So she tells them not to, and they all.
So her D&D chart is she's chaotic good, maybe chaotic neutral.
I guess so. I'm not that familiar with the D&D chart. Outside of seeing the memes of it, but the actual definitions, I'm like, I guess that makes sense.
Like Joker's chaotic evil,
right.
Batman's lawful good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole like spectrum. You can put a lot of characters that weren't designed for D&D into that.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
makes sense. But she persuades the churchgoers not to kill Scarecrow. Scarecrow wanted to be a martyr, and he gets frustrated that they all want to embrace him with open arms. Yeah. So he escapes, and he gets so frustrated by it and realizes that he's lost the element of fear, kind of like Batman, that his costume gets burned up. And now Jonathan Crane is wandering around the streets naked, and that's the end of the Scarecrow.
He's literally walking, they drew him naked.
Well, there's no butt shot or anything like that, but like
I need
all his clothes are
I think he's got little pants on.
Yeah, something.
He's got a Hulk thing going on, just his pants, huh?
It's just his purple sweatpants, yeah. So
all right. Well, that makes sense, I guess.
Batman, in the meantime, knows that he needs to make himself more known among Gotham, that he's back. So he finds out that Penguin is throwing these gladiatorial matches or combat sessions, and so he goes in and he starts basically being part of Fight Club and beating the shit out of the thugs, and ends up breaking Penguin's nose. What's interesting about this issue is that there's a potential continuity error, because Penguin reacts to Batman as if he's seeing him for the first time, and yet the issue that's meant to take place beforehand has Penguin doing, getting fooled by the whole kitchen timer thing. So I think there was a bit of a mix-up there in terms of the timing of when the issues would show up and where the continuity is. But anyways, he ends up forming an alliance with Penguin.
There's a lot of different writers on it, right?
There are different writers.
So maybe there was a problem there.
Yeah, I mean, there was supposed to be that Bat Summit where everybody was like, making sure they were on the same page. But I'm sure little details like that kind of fell through.
Scott Snyder was still just a little baby, dude. He's just not ready yet.
I guess so. The alliance of Penguin he forms is basically, I won't touch your business, but you'll give me information. So again, this is Batman making more compromises by teaming up with the villains who've taken over, because he needs some form of help.
It says this two Penguin again, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah. That's the exchange that they're having. And he makes another deal with Lockup. Do you guys remember Lockup from the animated series?
Lyle Bolton.
Yes.
No, I don't. I do not remember him.
Zach, can you recap Lockup for Andrew?
It was a Batman the Animated Series episode where basically there was an Arkham guard who was extremely brutal and violent, so much so that the Arkham inmates were scared of him and were voicing their problems with him to, like, I guess the psychiatrist Arkham or whoever was the head people, and they got him fired because I think at some point it was proven that he was super violent, and he ended up becoming this bad guy named Lockup. So I can't remember if he thought that Batman was he wanted to be like Batman, like he thought Batman was going to embrace his ideals because he's one of the good guys, but Batman turned against him as well. So yeah, once he lost everything, he became that bad guy and was doing his thing.
Was it born out of the BTAS?
Yeah, he was.
He was. Okay. All right.
An animated series character who crossed over into the comics, just like Montoya, Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Montoya was from BTAS also?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that at all. Okay.
All
right.
We'll have a lot more of her in a bit, but Lockup and a character who was not part of BTAS, but has certainly made his way in a lot of new adaptations recently, is the KG Beast. So Anton, damn, I forgot his last name. But anyway, Anton was featured in, not Anton. Wow, revoked my card. Anatoly. Anatoly.
Chikatilo.
Yeah. Anatoly was in Arrow as well as the guy who threatens Martha in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. But anyways, both Lockup and KG Beast are put in charge of Blackgate by Batman. Batman's like, I need help and I need some sort of prison. So he puts both Lockup and the KG Beast in charge of the remnants of Blackgate so that he can actually put these people somewhere. And there's kind of an irony that there are people who want to get into Blackgate now because they see it as some form of shelter. There's a guy who fakes killing somebody just so that Batman can throw him in there.
I heard you can get 3 squares a day in there, man.
Yeah. But this is how just messed up Gotham is, where people now want to get into one of the most dangerous prisons ever just because they can get fed. So it's getting ridiculous.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Batman decides that his next target is going to be Black Mask. So we're coming for you, Obi-Wan. Black Mask's next target is he's gunning for Oracle's watchtower. He wants to destroy it. He wants to destroy every building that was once owned by Bruce Wayne. And he's kind of gone a little bit more crazy. The False Face Society is now less of just a random bunch of criminals with masks and more of just a cult instead. And so he brings people, he recruits random Gothamites. He strings them up and he asks if they've seen the light. And if they haven't, then he basically disfigures them. And his idea is that we all have our masks, and he wants to do away with our masks and things like that. He's basically really messed up. He's even more messed up than you saw in Birds of Prey. But Batman assigns the mysterious new Batgirl to protect it, and he's like, protect the tower, try not to be seen. And she's like, I can do one, but not both. And then he's like, then you're not worthy of the mantle. So she's like, okay then, I guess I gotta, no pressure or anything. So she goes to protect the watchtower, not knowing that there's people who live in there. And one of the people who lives in there is Oracle. And she sees that the False Face Society is coming for her and everything. And she's not sure that Batman's going to come and save her or be able to fight all those people. So as a last resort, she is forced to pull out her father's sniper rifle to protect herself. And she hates herself for it. And she has Black Mask in her sights when she sees the form of the new Batgirl swoop in and save the day.
This is a total debut at this point.
And this is a total debut. Oracle does not know that Batgirl is out there, and there has not been any successors to the Batgirl name. And Oracle is very tempted, according to the Greg Rucka novelization, to pull the trigger when she sees this new Batgirl. She is that pissed. Because now she's in conflict with Batman. How dare you? She has this big confrontation scene. This is completely emotional. Where she's like, how dare you give her something that I built? There's another woman in my costume with my legs out there.
Yeah.
And Batman sort of has to apologize to her in his own way, basically saying, any pain I've caused you, it was never by any choice. he was kind of forced to do it. This is what No Man's Land has turned all of us into. We have to make all these choices and stuff. So Oracle kind of
she's just showing up out of nowhere wearing a Batgirl suit, though, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't like he didn't like find a girl, do recruits or anything.
No. He kind of just like, you're already doing it, and you're already in the Batman name and doing these tags, and I need somebody. So, might as well on that. So that's it's a great moment. It's a great character moment post the Killing Joke to see that on there. Zach, did you already know who the new Batgirl was when you read that stuff, or?
Oh no, not the first time.
Okay, got it.
Totally new character to me.
Yeah. I'll reveal to that later to you, Andrew. But I was just curious for that. There's a lot of different thematic mini stories that happen that come up during this time. So at one point, Penguin's men capture the son of Man-Bat because Man-Bat's son is like still like part bat as a kid, and so he can locate food because he's got the sensitive sense of smell, and so like he's a valuable commodity. But they
That's
forget
interesting.
that his mom also has the serum for being a man-bat, so she teams up with Batman and injects herself with the serum once again to basically find her son. So it's her and I guess Woman Bat going up against Penguin's men. So that's a cool story.
I know a lot of people like ask this kind of question all the time, but Superman, I guess, is fighting off planet somewhere, and Flash is tied up with his bullshit.
It's funny that you asked that because he's next.
Oh,
There's
shit.
a story called
Okay.
The Visitor. They actually
That's
this
cool.
is where a lot of people are like, well, the problem with this shared universe is that when a major storyline happens, like how do you explain why the Justice League isn't a part of it, or why Superman just doesn't come in and help solve everything for him?
Them fighting somebody else it's you could use it as an excuse every time. I guess it's fine.
So there is a story called The Visitor, written by Kelly Puckett, where Superman shows up to Gotham City, and Batman finds him and tells him, all right, do whatever you can in 24 hours and show me what you can do. As if he's the boss of Superman. So Superman has an engineer. He saves an engineer.
Right away, sir. Wait, I'm not Alfred. You fucked me up. Playing some bat mind tricks on me.
So Superman has an engineer bring power back to this one station, but everybody wants to go to that station. And he's like, all right, I first start with bringing back electricity to the people. But the problem is people now see this from a no man's land situation. So Mr. Freeze shows up and he's like, this is my power station now. So Superman, you'll like this, Andrew. Superman fights Mr. Freeze during
that's
this
cool.
time.
I gotta read this fucking thing.
Yeah.
I'm missing out on some good stuff, apparently.
Yes. But once he defeats Mr. Freeze, he finds that all the Gothamites are now fighting over who gets power first, and they try to give food to the engineer as some sort of tribute. This is similar to what Batman discovered
Wait,
when he
I have
took
to
over
ask now.
Ventriloquist.
So freeze breath, he tries freeze breath, doesn't work at all, or some shit. Mr. Freeze is like, that feels incredible, actually.
I think maybe Superman already knew that was not going to work.
Oh yeah, let me go with the heat vision route this time around.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a better route for that.
Just throw some chicken soup at him.
Yes.
That's all you need.
The only way to fight a cold.
Yeah.
So Superman tells Batman, he sees all this. He sees that all the Gothamites are fighting for power, or literal, not like power, but like electricity power. And he tells Batman,
for
you're
canned
right.
tuna.
Yeah, for canned
They
tuna.
want
and stuff.
canned tuna.
So he has to tell Batman he's right. Gotham is not ready for hope, which is a hell of a thing to say coming from Superman.
Okay, so he's like, you figure it out.
Pretty much. So, but overall, the explanation, and it comes from a later Justice League issue, is that the Justice League is the Justice League of America, and it is illegal for them to step foot and help out No Man's Land.
Okay.
According to that issue by Mark Waid. I would think that they would ignore that and still help out, but that's the explanation that we were given.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a.
Yeah.
They just have to deal with that as writers
Yeah.
and then try to get around it. Yeah, it being a shared universe is tough, man.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, but that's their explanation for it. But I'm glad you asked that because that was exactly what I had next.
I felt it in the force, bro.
Yes, indeed.
The Bat Force.
Yes. when the Blue Boys take over more gang territory, Gordon is sort of forced to figure out or make some more moral compromises in order to show people that he means business. And Pettit, if you remember Pettit, the survivalist, Shane-esque, before Shane existed, guy, is very trigger happy, and he shoots a gang member in the head just immediately and executes him in front of everybody in order to show that he means business, which pisses off Gordon.
I am the law.
Yeah, pretty much. He's Judge Dredd. But Gordon sort of walks away with this feeling of guilt about what happened, only to get confronted by a man in the shadows. And Gordon pulls a gun on this man who basically and calls him, you're a lunatic. Like, what do you want? And all those sorts of things. And this man wants to form some sort of alliance. And Gordon isn't agreeing to it. But I will let Zach do the voice here in terms of what this man says to him. But Gordon basically calls him a lunatic, and the man responds,
"What kind of a man lets his wife and crippled daughter remain here? We're two of a kind."
Very good. Very good. No notes.
No notes.
No notes.
Nice. So that is Two-Face has arrived, and he is the next major player in this game. And he points out that Gordon can't even claim the moral high ground because Two-Face already knows that he set off that gang war between the low boys and the street demons, and he knows what his boy Pettit did by shooting that gang member in the head. So he offers to help out the Blue Boys, just like old times, because remember, they used to team up together against Falcone and everything. And they're going to take out the gang territory together. And Gordon feels like he's making a deal with the devil, but he has no choice. So Gordon teams up with Two-Face in order to continue to survive in the no man's land. Again, this is more epicness. Gordon did a similar thing. He teamed up with Penguin and Riddler in Season 5 of Gotham in order to take down the mercenaries who were threatening them. So this idea of Gordon making these compromises has continued in the adaptations. But personally for me, I think Two-Face in No Man's Land the No Man's Land version of Two-Face is probably one of the best comic book versions or best comic book storylines of Two-Face in here.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you first read it, Zach, how did you feel about their portrayal of this?
I mean, it was great because I guess when I read that, my only Two-Face experiences was Batman Forever and the animated series. And the animated series, like, that was closer in line to what I understood, whenever I watched those episodes. And it was a much more subtle, I guess, interpretation of Two-Face rather
This
than
is not the Tommy Lee Jones
screaming.
Two-Face.
Yes. As much as I love him, yeah. Not the best interpretation acting-wise.
Kind of day.
It's a little, yeah, a little much there.
Yes.
Jim Carrey's got the whole overacting thing down, man. I think
Yes.
Maybe you don't do that next time.
He must have taken that note because he pretty much played it straight in Captain America: First Avenger. So
Right.
it ended up working out in the end. So let's see. Gordon decides he needs somebody to communicate in
I
VA.
forgot he was in that fucking movie. Yes, he is fucking like a drill sergeant or some shit.
Yeah, he's the. It's a DC Marvel crossover.
I saw that 1,000 times because I worked on the Blu-ray for that movie.
Ah, got it.
Did Blu-ray QC, as it were. Anyway.
Yes. But Gordon has to have somebody communicate to Two-Face secretly because he doesn't want his wife to know that he's working with Two-Face. He doesn't want the rest of the Gotham cops to know that he's working with Two-Face, but he knows that he can trust Montoya. And the question is, why? So that brings us to a prequel story called Two Down, written by Greg Rucka. I would encourage you guys. It's collected in the No Man's Land volumes, but if you can find it, read that while you're reading Cataclysm and Aftershock, because this covers why Gordon trusts Montoya. But in that storyline, Two-Face had flipped the coin and it came up good side. And he decided to actually help the relief efforts to rescue people. And so he and Renee's brother, Benny Montoya, ended up being part of this group who was rescuing people. And Renee Montoya was walking around one day during, the Aftershock era and had like one bullet in her gun and saw Two-Face, and she was like, holy shit, this, it's Two-Face, and she thought that she might have to arrest him, but she saw that he was helping people. So she decides to help out and also keep an eye on Two-Face to make sure that he doesn't turn homicidal. And things started to get hairy when a random criminal is like, "Hey, Two-Face," and he's like, he remembers him from the boat at Blackgate, and he asks Two-Face to become part of the gang. And Two-Face flips the coin, and it comes up good side again, and he's like, "No," and the guy's like, "Nobody refuses me," and so they get into a fight, and the criminal is about to attack Two-Face, and Renee shoots him with her one bullet in order to save Two-Face's life. Batman, at the time, he was still in Gotham, heard that, and he showed up, and he thought that Two-Face had done something, and he's about to threaten Two-Face again, and Two-Face flips the coin, and now it's back to Batman versus Two-Face until Renee Montoya caught the coin in the air and told Two-Face he doesn't have to do this. You can still help people. You don't have to change. You can still be Harvey Dent. And Two-Face thought it over, and eventually he, and this is the first time that's ever happened, thanks to Montoya, decided to turn himself in and go back to Arkham, much to Gordon's surprise. So Montoya seems to have this effect on Two-Face, and Gordon knows that, and they create this temporary alliance, become where Montoya is the liaison, and she even brings the coin to him as a peace offering. Now, I'm going to have Greg Rucka talk about why he made this choice in it. So,
For Renee's story, I had this idea that everybody in the DC universe had a special power. Not everybody can fly or is bulletproof, but they can do something. And Renee's thing was that she could get both Harvey Dent and Two-Face to listen to her at the same time. She was the one thing Harvey and Two-Face could agree on.
Bravo, Mr. Rucka. Totally what he sounds like, I'm sure.
I'm Greg Rucka.
Have you read the novelization?
Have you joined my country club?
Have you read the novelization?
We started
Zach?
accepting Jews recently.
Pipe down there, Mr. Rucka.
We're progressive.
Have you read the novel, Zach?
I have not, but there is like a guy that was writing a blog for a long time called About Faces, and he's like all in the Two-Face.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talk a lot, and I've done some stuff from him because we both love Two-Face so much, and he actually went over like the differences between the novelization and the graphic novel. So I remember reading just a little bit from that, but I haven't read it personally.
Got it. Okay. So for Andrew's sake, I will cover a little bit. The main thing that novelization covers is more scenes between Two-Face and Montoya and this interesting relationship they have. So Two-Face, at one point, he has this henchman called the Tally Man, who's a previous Batman villain. He's like a weird takeoff of Zaz because he also keeps tallies of who he kills, and I'm kind of like, what? Isn't that redundant? Okay. I don't think he carves him into his body, or maybe he does, but we don't really see it. He's got like this top hat and a mask. It's
I carve like these tallies into my body. It's totally new and
it's totally
amazing.
Original. No, I decided not to do the body thing. I'm just keeping it in a notebook. So the Tally Man tells Two-Face, like, hey, there's this cop who arrived for you, and she has this coin. And, if she didn't have the coin, I would have put a bullet in her. And Two-Face grabs Tally Man, and he's like, did you just say that you put a bullet in her? And Tally Man's like, no. I'm saying that, she's there. She's in the holding cells waiting for you. So Two-Face...
Who even has a bullet these days? Who has that?
Exactly.
No one has that.
Two-Face took him from Ventriloquist.
I have like 20 guns and no bullets.
So Two-Face relaxes, and before he goes to meet her, he runs both hands through his hair before going in, and says, "Hey, Renee, how's it going and everything?" So Rucka is establishing this is the first woman since Gilda Dent that Two-Face is in love with. So this is a fascinating story. It's incredible how he writes this in the novel, because Two-Face's voice in his head is criticizing him the same way that a dude who's really in his head when he's on a date with a girl starts criticizing himself, where like Renee at one point sits across from him at the desk, and Two-Face's voice in his mind is like, you should have moved behind the desk first, you dolt. Like, he's like criticizing himself for like how he should have talked to her and things like that. But she's like the one thing that both Two-Face and Harvey are in love with. It's the one person who both Two-Face and Harvey are in love with, and the one thing that they can both agree on here. So it's a fascinating character exploration on here. But he decides he wants to help Gordon. He genuinely has affection for Renee. Now, keep in mind...
Is he flipping the coin as he's on a date with the girl? Like, should we go movies first or dinner first?
No,
Let's flip it like every little step of the way.
Well, she doesn't know that he sees it that way quite. And here's the thing.
Skee ball or a walk around the fountain or whatever the fuck. He's flipping a coin the whole fucking time.
Yeah. The interesting thing here, though, is that Greg Rucka is sort of planting early on the idea that Renee Montoya is actually a lesbian and is in the closet. That had not been revealed yet. That was a new
in the beginning stages, huh?
It was not in BTAS. I mean, I imagine it wouldn't have been in a 90s, cartoon at that time. But it is something that he was thinking of, and it starts here because this storyline ends up tying into the future Gotham Central storyline where she got outed out of the closet. And she became, one of the more famous LGBTQ characters in here. So, anyways, Two-Face, true to his name, has this big plan to help out Gordon, where Gordon will help him take territory. And it involves basically double-crossing the Penguin. So there's this giant gang war between him and Penguin. Batman gets tricked and incapacitated in the process. Batgirl fails to protect the land from Penguin in the gang war. And right when things are about to heat up, Penguin gets shot in the leg by an arrow. And Two-Face arrives and tells him that you thought that you would double your territory. Turns out it's been half, and mine's been doubled. So now Penguin is off the board. If we were to do Risk, he's off the board, and now Two-Face is the new major player. Penguin getting shot in the leg actually was adapted in Gotham in the very first episode of their No Man's Land arc. But in that version, Gordon just shot him with a bullet. And he shot him in the bad leg, too. So it was hilarious. Batman wakes up after being incapacitated by the person that Two-Face hired, and he runs over to the territory, and he finds the bodies of the cops that he swore to protect, and they're all hung up by Two-Face. And in their blood is the message, "Tails, you lose."
Tales from the crypts.
Not those tales. I do kind of wonder, since it's a message written in blood, if that was like if that was them sort of referencing the deleted opening of Batman Forever with the Bat Must Die. I don't know. I guess
they're all talking. Maybe. I mean, I don't know how much was behind the scenes knowledge in the early internet days like that. Even
remember,
I don't. You know what I mean?
The Bat Must Die image was in the Batman Forever comic adaptation, and the images were all over the place. So
that's possible. Then maybe
I would argue that's a more famous deleted scene than the giant bat in Batman Forever. So we would see. Interestingly enough, in the junior novelization, the one by Alan Grant, they sort of made it more PG, where Batgirl loses the land because she fell asleep on the job.
I like that one.
I was like, what? So, while Gordon and Essen are fighting Killer Croc at the same time.
A couple episodes ago, you reveal like an early Joker plot in one of the early comics where he lied about some kid's report card or something.
He stole Johnny Blake's report card.
Yeah, that was hilarious, dude. Devilish indeed.
But yeah, here Batgirl in the original, in the original version, Batgirl was up against a lot of people. She was outnumbered by all the thugs and everybody, and that's how she lost the territory. Was she felt she couldn't do anything, and she brings us up to Batman. She's like, she was 200 of Two-Face's men. What was I supposed to do? And Batman
this is
just
spoiler,
says,
right? With the full face mask. Spoiler, Batgirl.
I'll go into who it is. Remember, spoiler just gave birth. She was pregnant.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm trying to keep track here.
I mean, I know women are really tough, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to do that.
How can there be two of them in this story?
Two spoilers.
I'm confused by just two of them.
That girl's Renee Montoya, right?
Yes.
Oh, man. You guys, I quit.
Canceled.
Cancel myself. Wolfie's cancel stamp.
Yeah. No, she's like, what was I supposed to do? There were 200 of Two-Face's men, and Batman just says, more. So in the I was just like, no, seriously, what was I supposed to do? In the novelization, she quits out of shame. But in the comic, she watches Batman bury the bodies, and he turns to the Batgirl and all he says is, "I trusted you," and he leaves her. But as I said, in the novelization, she unmasks herself and quits out of shame, and it's revealed in the novelization a little earlier than in the comic that underneath the mask is Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress.
Oh, shit.
So, how did
Okay.
this happen? Because I'm sure you weren't expecting that, Andrew.
No.
Yeah. So, what exactly happened? So we
You
jump
could
back
tell,
to...
though, because she had the same midriff showing in both costumes.
There was
so
no midriff showing.
obviously.
Honestly, I mean, it wasn't... I don't know. Was it surprising once you got to that part, Zach, when it was revealed that was her? Or did you even know who she was? Because, like, Huntress was not part of the BTAS or any of the movies. So it was like, who's this?
I didn't know who she was until I started getting the earlier volumes, and then and the visual dictionary thing. That
Of course,
kinda helped me out.
I would have
For
been the
layman
same.
like me.
Yeah, I was like, the Huntress. Okay, I guess it's the Huntress, but also it was like kind of obvious too, because I'm just like, well, Oracle's in the wheelchair. I didn't know. Spoiler, wasn't in any of the novelizations, so I didn't know who she was. So I'm just like, and then the only other person who's fighting crime here is Huntress, so it's probably Huntress. So it didn't surprise me at all when it was revealed back then. But yeah, in No Man's Land #0, the same issue where Bruce Wayne let himself get his ass kicked by muggers and then let himself get slapped by Talia. Huntress is revealed to have been trying to do what she could at during No Man's Land. She stops a man from assaulting another woman, only to find that it was the woman who was trying to steal from the guy, and so she ends up inadvertently helping the crime. And she finds the problem is that people aren't scared of the Huntress. They don't really know who she is. So she ends up creating her own Batgirl suit, modeled off of the Barbara Gordon original, to sort of instill fear and bring that hope with the bat ears and everything. And at one point she has a confrontation with a thief who's like sprays her in the face with paint, so she's got it all over, the bare part of her chin. And,
Is this the first time and only time the Huntress has become Batgirl? Or is this pretty common?
It's during No Man's Land. Yeah, it's during No Man's Land.
Okay, all right. So it's not that common at all then.
No, not at all. Especially because beforehand she was always at odds with Batman. This is why it was like such a big thing, because she was like, I'm my own thing. I'm not going to be part of your vigilante club, Batman. I don't answer to you. But when push comes to shove, there's no Batman. She realizes somebody's got to step up. Somebody has to represent that for the city.
Crossbow is also definitely not a gun, so we're cool on that, right, Bats?
Yeah, but she doesn't use that when she's Batgirl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she almost kills this one dude who attacked her and put all the spray paint on her face, but she sees the reflection on the window, and it's her in the Batgirl outfit, and she decides to let him go. She decides she has to, for as long as she's in that outfit, she will abide by the Batman code. And also to prevent people from figuring out that she's also the Huntress, because she got sprayed in the face, and Huntress's mask is only, the ones that cover her eyes. She ends up sewing the chin part over so that it covers her entire face when she's Batgirl. And that's the explanation for how Helena Bertinelli decided to become Batgirl. Batman, of course, being the detective, could tell from the beginning it was her, based off of body language, so he's not surprised at all. But I thought that was interesting. Anyway, in the novelization, it's around this point that Gordon wants to stop the alliance with Two-Face. He's already gotten more of the territory. He's already made this one deal with the devil, and he asks Montoya to go and tell Two-Face that it's over. You got what you wanted. I got what I wanted. Let's end this. Because he doesn't realize what's really happening. So in the novelization only, Montoya goes, and Two-Face is all like he's wearing his best suit and everything because he wants to impress Montoya, and Montoya tells him, "This is going to be the last time I see you," because Gordon says the deal's off. And Two-Face sees this as Gordon trying to cut him off from the woman he loves. So he pulls out the coin, and he's like, "You should go. Before I throw the coin, you should go." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Go now." And she runs, and he decides, "All right, this is going to help me determine what to do with Gordon," and he flips it. And it's scarred side. So he decides to put out a hit on Gordon, and of course he finds the best person to do that is Batman's former mentor, David Kane. So if you guys remember way back in the Batman training episode, that the assassin David Kane was one of the many people who trained Batman. His first appearance was in No Man's Land.
Oh, yeah.
The novelization reveals that Kane halo jumps into Robinson Park. This is not in the comic, but this is how he gets into Gotham, because it's not explained in the comic. And he jumps into Robinson Park because it's the only area that would be open enough for him to do so, at the risk of getting found by poison ivy. So he nearly gets killed by all the different foliage that comes alive, but he escapes out of there because he's David Kane. But anyway...
David Kane's trainer, this is not common knowledge, but it was Tom Cruise, actually.
Yes, of course.
Halo jumps and whatnot.
So Batman, in the meantime, this is one of my favorite scenes between Batman and Two-Face. In revenge for what happens to the cops, he goes to Two-Face in the middle of the night and he ties him up. And he tells him, you killed those men, the men I swore to protect. And then he tells Two-Face, as he sees the coin, he picks it up and he's like, he sees the appeal. The ease of using it for morality, how easy it would be. He's like, it must be nice not to have a choice. And he's like, just this once. And he flips the coin on Two-Face. And he catches it. In the novelization, this is even cooler, because after he catches it, he throws it against the wall, and it embeds itself in the wall. And then he turns to Two-Face, and he says, never forget, Harvey. Never forget what you almost made me do. And then he leaves. So he's trying to scare him into implying that he would have killed him for what he did in taking that territory. So clearly this is not BTAS Batman being like, Harvey, I can save you. This is more just like, Harvey, I will kill you if you do this again. Yeah.
Where's Harvey?
Yes. But he ends up spying and lip reading on Two-Face and lip reading him talking to Tallyman and finding out that he's in love with Montoya. So he's like, that's weird.
That's a little strange, isn't it?
In the novelization, too, Greg Rucka brings up that the only other person he knows that Harvey ever loved was Gilda, and Gilda apparently is dead, according to Rucka in the novelization. So that's an interesting ending to her post The Long Halloween, which I think was released around the same time as this, as not originally supposed to be part of continuity, but ended up becoming it. But anyways, he hears that Two-Face wants to kill Gordon because of being separated from Montoya, and he lip reads the name Kane, and he realizes that it's his old mentor who's been hired to do this. It is, of course, not the RoboCop 2 villain, but the guy who taught him.
Oh, man. It is, of course, however, not the RoboCop 2 villain. I like
yes.
That was a good
wordage
wordage
not
there.
Michael Caine either. Not the Alfred.
The size of a tangerine.
So Kane enforced the philosophy of violence as a language, and Bruce learned from him, and he later reveals to his allies that he did train under this assassin, but just because it's kind of like the idea of like just because you know how to kill doesn't mean that you do kill. So he wanted to learn the assassin's mind and how they interacted and things like that. But little does Kane know that there is someone else he knows in the No Man's Land, and that is his daughter, Cassandra. So that is also the introduction of Cassandra Kane, who was seen in Birds of Prey. A very different version of Cassandra than what's in the comics, but in the original comics, as we covered in the Birds of Prey episode, she was the daughter of David Kane, and he sent her to kill someone when she was only a little girl. And she went in, and she basically tore a man's throat out based off of his training. And she realizes what she had done, and she decided never to trust her dad again. Weirdly enough, in the Greg Rucka novelization, she starts off as an agent of Oracle, and ends up meeting the Huntress and has, like, the novels try to plant her in a little more. In the comics, she just randomly shows up around the same time as her dad. But the novels tried to plant her in a little more so that you know who she is. In the junior novelization, she actually takes out Mr. Zsasz. So that's kind of cool, and that's how Batman ends up knowing her. But in the original comic, she's shown as somebody who helps out Barbara, and Barbara, in exchange, she helps teach Cassandra how to talk, because Cassandra is mute, unlike the one from Birds of Prey. But...
That was a choice. that was a choice.
Yeah. But in this version, Cassandra is friends with Barbara and gets to meet Commissioner Gordon. And when she walks out, she sees her dad, and she realizes that shit's about to go down because she knows that her dad's an assassin. So she ends up saving Gordon's life. Again, this is her first issue. She throws herself in front of him right when Kane's looking through the sniper rifle. And Kane is like, holy shit, that's my daughter. What's she doing here? And the story about trying to kill Gordon kind of becomes this sort of weird father-daughter storyline that's kind of emotional at its core and manages to be, even though these are two characters we've never really seen before on here. So when they reunite and they're a little bit, they're in the same room together, Cassandra tries to stop him with her fists, and when that doesn't work, she screams her first word, which is stop. And that actually stops Kane, because he's like, you can speak? And he almost cries from that. Batman is trying to figure out the situation and stop Kane, and he sort of figures out that Kane will only kill Gordon so that he can get paid. If you remove money from the equation, Kane will leave. And he tells this to Cassandra. So Cassandra puts on a mask and steals Two-Face's money so that she can remove that from the equation. And she shows up with the money when Batman's fighting Kane in order to be like, hey, you don't have to kill Gordon because here's the money. Kind of a cool way to wrap it, but a cooler way to wrap it is actually in the novel, where she shows up with the money, but instead of giving it to her dad, she pours gasoline on it and lights it on fire. Basically saying, you're not getting your money either. You're not getting shit. And Kane drops down into tears because of what this means for the father-daughter relationship, and then he tells Batman to take care of her before he leaves Gotham. So it's a really interesting introduction to Cassandra Cain, but it's really to set up her place in the Bat mythos, because she is going to be taking over, as I'm sure if you guys have already guessed right now, she's going to become the new Batgirl on that piece, because this is, I guess, what they wanted to do in terms of saying there's a false Batgirl from beforehand, and we're going to put the real new successor to Batgirl later on. Around the same time, we got the division of the Blue Boys, where Pettit gets trigger happy and ends up killing hostages and criminals. He's just all full out, I love guns and shooting people. And Gordon doesn't like that. So creates a civil war between the GCPD where he splits off on his own.
The Blue Boys.
Yes. And so the Blue Boys are split, and Batman ends up finally talking to Gordon. And the first thing that Gordon does is punch him in the face. And Batman tells him that Two-Face, he's like, Two-Face is an ally you can trust. And Gordon replies, neither were you. There's a scene in the novelization that sort of reveals after when he goes to bed, he tells Sarah that Gordon resents how much he's had to rely on Batman over the years, and it made him feel like less of a cop. So his anger at Batman is more anger towards himself, really.
And Batfleck's got to get on him with his HBO Max money.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's all I got to say. Holy shit, they got a winner right here.
They got a ton of shit here. And then, throw in Mary Elizabeth Winstead's Huntress into there. I think that could work as well. Andrew's already excited by that. But so here's where we got the Huntress Batgirl has been disavowed. Gordon is still pissed at Batman. The Blue Boys are split. Two-Face rules the land. Nicholas Scratch, Joker, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, all those guys are out there. Batman goes to Alfred in the novelization. This is not in the comic, but in the novelization, he turns to Alfred and he's like, I failed.
I have to check in on Mr. Freeze's current status in this. So basically, my man.
That's all you care about.
Yeah, he doesn't have any power to charge his fucking gun and shit. Like
no diamonds.
No diamonds. The diamond.
Nora, he's using it all on some backup generator that can just power Nora. This is post Nora, right? Yeah.
I gotta look it up because I'm still reading through part 2, and he shows up more in part 2.
This is very important, Ben. I'm counting on you to do this work.
I'm just going to have to recap that when we get to part 2.
I need that. Victor Cap.
Okay, let's say that he raided all the jewelry stores for diamonds.
Just as long as he's able to survive, man.
But yeah, Batman has failed to bring Gotham back because he took over ventriloquist territory, but everyone else is like Two-Face took over. Like he hasn't done anything. And Alfred tells him now is the time to reach out. Now is the time to bring back Nightwing and Robin. And he says, quote, there is no weakness in turning to others for aid in times of crisis. So Batman returns to Oracle in the clock tower, And she's like, what can I do for you? And he says, call them. And that's going to be the end of part 1. So that's going to be the cliffhanger I leave for you guys on No Man's Land. But to sum it up, I will have Gorfinkel himself, the guy who was the brainchild of this, tell us what this is all leading up to.
My name's Gorfinkel, and if No Man's Land was successful, it was because of the story's emotional arc. Batman is initially forced by circumstance to fight the good fight without any support. There's no Batcave, there's no Commissioner Gordon, and there's no sidekicks. What would Batman do? You can get the bracelets at the mall for that. Would he continue to embrace being the lone Dark Knight, or will he realize I'm not the same guy I was 5 years ago? I have a family, and I should embrace this family? And that was the emotional arc of No Man's Land. That, to me, was what the story was all about.
Thank you, Mr.
Work, I
Gorfinkel.
guess. My name is Gorfinkel.
I had a poster in my classroom that said WWBD, and I have like Batman up there with his arms crossed.
Oh, really?
And the kids are always like, what does that mean?
They don't even get the reference,
Batman,
right?
dude.
Oh, man.
They don't even get the WWJD part, right? Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. So, to sum up the arc, in the junior novelization, it says, quote, it takes a true hero to admit to having limitations. It takes an even greater hero to make amends. So,
You remember that old system, PlayStation 3? That's your students, bro.
Yeah. But, yeah, that is the first half, I think. It's more like the first third, honestly, of No Man's Land. Jesus Christ, this is like 2 hours. I hope I know what I'm doing. I'm a fraud. I don't know anything about that.
We're counting on you, Ben. I haven't read it.
But yeah, that is
Zach's a guest.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that is our first part 1. This is our part 1 episode on No Man's Land. So far, what do you think, Andrew, of this storyline?
Definitely, like, you said, it's like character moment after character moment, and that's what this is. So
Yeah.
I cannot get the Batfleck HBO Max series out of my head after this. It's like,
After I said that, yeah.
it's just so, yeah, it's so, like, it's already there, like character moment. All the character moments I feel like would just transfer so easily to the stage, to the screen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see what everybody does during this time, and there's some weak parts, like with Superman. Like, what the fuck? Like, Superman could have come down and been like, "Hold on, I hear Metallo about to fuck up an entire planet. I gotta go. I'm sorry. You're on your own, Bruce. I'm sorry, man." Something along those lines.
Yes, Mr. Batman, sir. I'll clean the city in 24 hours.
But I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, it's hard. That's why the Elseworld stories are often like so fucking good, because they don't have to deal with the whole canon. So that's always difficult, even for the best writers. But yeah, it's definitely it's great. I want to read the whole thing now, and I want to know Mr. Freeze's status for sure next time, man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You
failed.
failed.
With little polar bear slippers on, just
I need my
Zach,
polar bear
I have to
slippers.
ask: did you buy polar bear slippers just because you're such a fan of Forever? Okay.
You're Batman and Robin.
We have to have an episode where Ben's wearing his Keaton black turtleneck. You're wearing the slippers, and I don't know what the fuck I'd be wearing. Something else. Something else.
You should wear the Mr. Freeze slippers. Actually.
Farmer Brown, whatever.
I'll wear the skin tight green leotard with the
Hell yeah! I had that. My mom sews, and she made me the green that Jim Carrey thing back in the day when the movie came out. I asked my mom when we did the Batman Forever deep dives. I texted her.
Wait, he knows. He listened to that.
Did I? Oh, sorry. But for everybody else that hasn't, I tried to see if I could release those pictures online, of me in the costume, but we couldn't find them. Sadly enough.
It'll leak out someday.
Kid's costume. I have a huge Batman collection upstairs, like a whole Batman room. But I've got like one of the kids' costumes like still in the bag. There's a Halloween place in South Carolina that's called Halloween Highway, and all they sell is Halloween stuff all year round. And they have old costumes there. But I've got
Nice.
I've gotten the Two-Face and Riddler kids costumes like in their little packages in there.
Oh, nice.
Of the
Really
Forever
cool.
versions?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Nice. What does your wife I have to ask this. What does your wife think about all the Batman room and everything?
Very accepting. Yeah. That's, I mean,
That's good.
she's got
That's
like
how it
her
would work.
own thing. She's like super into a lot of like Jim Henson stuff, like the Labyrinth and Dark Crystal.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And she's into like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like the new Sabrina and everything. So she's got.
So
like, her
she
own
likes
thing
Satan then.
too. Yes, of course. That's how we
That
get all
show
this cool
is
stuff.
highly satanic, and it's really good. But I'm just surprised. Like that show would not have been made in the '90s, bro.
No,
There's
she loves the Melissa Joan
pentagrams and
artwork,
Satan
too.
and fucking rituals, and like they do not fucking tone down the Satan in that show. It's really incredible. Like Netflix just let it like do whatever, make us some money. It's like South Park. You're greenlit, as soon as they call.
Nice.
I'm impressed. Yeah, she collects a lot of Harley stuff, so almost
nice.
everything that I have that's Harley is like things that she's bought or that I got for her to be in the room too. So,
A Harley shrine of sorts.
oh yeah,
Okay.
if I get a wireless extender thing for upstairs, then maybe I'll do the next episode in the Batman room just so you guys can see
Yes.
the background.
Yes.
That'll be cool.
I want to see that. Over to Zach, closing thoughts on this recap on No Man's Land.
It's great. It's like it's one of my favorite.
Thank you.
It's
It
one of my
was good.
favorite storylines. Yeah, so it's I don't know. I'm not gonna have anything but positive thoughts about it.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Again, like HBO Max, please. Affleck with J.K. Simmons. I want to see J.K. Simmons destroy a bat signal and punch Affleck in the face from all this. Does make me wonder who could be a good Two-Face, a good Penguin in that world as well. Also could be interesting to sort of cross over some of the other DCEU characters that are in this that don't really necessarily match up to what was in the comics. So like it'll be interesting how they do with Cassandra Cain or Montoya, because those don't quite match up to the versions in this version.
It set a good precedent too. Like this is a contained story. We do one season. This is No Man's Land, the season,
Yeah.
and then it'll if they I know nerds always say this, if they did it right, but if they
Yes.
if they did it right, they'd have another one where they could do another big arc. I forget what another big one from the comics. Just
They
what I
could
mean?
as well. Yeah, it would have to be worth.
Season by season miniseries type.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this would take a while. This would be a long. Like if you covered everything from Cataclysm on and everything and gave justice to it, like it'd be fantastic. I think on that. Would
be
you
cool.
still keep Leto?
I you know what? Like I've said before,
Yeah.
take out the fucking damage tattoo. I hate that.
But how am I
But-
supposed to know he's damaged?
That's right. But the thing is, though, a lot of people don't like him on set. Like, so maybe there is that. But if he can like be more likable on set, I could see Leto Joker again, because I think that oftentimes actors are victims of their own movie in a way. They don't really. They see a script and they know who's going to direct it, but they don't know how much studio interference is going to happen in the editing process and all that. And it happened a lot, especially around that time. So I don't know. I feel like he seems to go all in. He's fucking totally committed. But like Will Smith not liking him at all. I feel like Will Smith doesn't.
It's okay. Deadshot's not in this.
We haven't, but it says something like, I don't feel like I've ever heard other stories of Will Smith just not liking other actors. So maybe there is something to that. Anyway, go ahead, Zach. I'm sorry to take so long.
Oh, I don't even know what I was saying. But you were just
Leto,
asking about the Joker.
Leto as Joker in No Man's Land.
It's a no. It's a no from Zach.
Yeah, it's so hard. I remember I drew him a couple times when Suicide Squad was coming out because I liked what I saw in the trailers, but
Other than
I
the
don't-
damage, or did you like the damage tattoo?
no, whenever I drew him, I didn't draw that on his
Okay,
forehead.
yeah, nobody likes that.
I admitted that. I was like, this isn't a good idea. But other than that, like, I don't mind his like design. I like he looks kind of like the Frank Miller Joker. I like that, and I like the purple alligator like skin jacket. I thought
that was a good
some of
choice.
those ideas were pretty cool. But yeah, I just don't know. Even if you saw more of him, there was a lot of things in the movie that I didn't quite like or agree with. He was weird.
There's a minor release the Ayer cut movement on Twitter and shit.
I've seen that.
Yeah, so maybe there's probably a lot of scenes cut from especially Leto Joker.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I would give it a chance.
Yeah.
I would want to see like what he looks like without anything being cut, but it's yeah, he did some weird things, so I don't know.
Don't send any
He's
boxes with
bottom of my
fucking rats in them or whatever. They send boxes of dead rats or something
Used
to the
condoms, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
that's what the Joker would
toys.
do. No, really not
Not
really though, man.
no.
That's not really a thing.
I
All right.
didn't like it in the movie because he didn't kill anybody in a Jokerish way. Like
That's true.
He just straight up shoots people. I was like, this is a world where Killer Croc exists.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you just have him like spray acid on somebody, or like have a gun with like a little spear in it with a bang flag? I was like, this is prime opportunity to actually have some more comic book elements. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It was never really funny
Sure.
the way that the others were.
No, he was
Ledger
was he?
and
Did he
Nicholson.
say even a single joke?
Not really.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. I remember him being like sexually fluid. Let's put it that
Yes.
way. In a
We'll
couple
explore it
scenes.
in the Suicide Squad deep dive. You looking forward
Yeah.
to that?
Let's do it.
All right. What if
we
they
should
were-
just do that in Terminator Ninja Turtles 3 the
same
back
time.
to back just because we hate ourselves enough. There's a reason we did
We do this for
Terminator
you,
1,
Internet.
Ninja Turtles 1 and the Ninja Turtles 2 pretty close to each other, but we haven't quite gotten to that third episode just yet. Not rushing into that
understand.
one.
That is part 1 of No Man's Land. Join us again next time for part 2, and we'll have Zach back as well, as things are about to heat up if they hadn't already on
Fuck
that.
yeah, motherfucker.
Yep. Zach, go ahead and I guess plug anything. How can fans who might be seeing this for the first time or know you for the first time through this, how can they find you and your art?
my Instagram is Zachary Jackson Brown Art, and my website is the same thing. It's ZacharyJacksonBrownArt.com.
And as always, a shout out to Kooky Noms, Matt Herring, Elijah B, Shamrock Balls, Aaron Willett, Ian H, Dan D, Leom O, and Super Inframan. Please join the Shasta Army at patreon.com/superherostuffpod. And we have most importantly, the $5 Patreon tier, which gives you the bonus feed, extra episodes every week. Please leave us a review in iTunes. That would be great. And as Zach has done so many times wonderfully, please record a phone bumper on your phone and your voice recorder app and send that to SuperHousePodcast@gmail.com. And you too can be on the show. I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Twitter and Instagram. Check us out on YouTube if you're not already. And Ben.
I'm Ben Juan Ryder on Instagram, and you can check us out on Instagram as well, which is how we met Zach, through Superhero Stuff Pod. And you can follow both us and Zachary Jackson Brown Art, and where you can see other art that he's done, including the thumbnail that you see here. So,
Oh,
I
shit.
think that's it. So, Ben signing off.
Signing off.
This is your old Uncle Joker signing off, kiddies.